You are now listening to Sweep the Rack podcast featuring Brooklyn Rob and Big Mike.
Rob, what's good, homie?
Yo, Big Mike. Yo, let me tell you right off the bat, I'm hooked on this Last Dance Michael Jordan documentary. Dude, I've been watching.
We got to make this quick tonight. We got to make this wrap up quick tonight because Last Dance is coming on.
No, because I'm not caught up yet. I've been catching up. So I've been watching a lot of them in a short period of time right now.
Okay.
So I'm on episode, I think, 5 or 6. So I'm, it's close. It's not a big series, but
God, dude, what the hell's wrong with you, son?
What?
You watch The Wire 20 years after it's popular. You're behind on The Last Dance. It's the only thing on right now, dog. What else would you be watching? Like that's appointment viewing to me right now.
I got caught up in Ozark on Netflix.
All right, I'm watching Ozark right now. I'm on episode 3 of season 3.
Yeah, and that season 3 is really good. So I didn't want to go back and forth. So look, like the Jordan documentary so far has been just absolutely amazing. Dude, Michael Jordan, like his mindset on how he did things.
Serial killer.
Dude, like that's why there's only one Michael Jordan, right? And it had nothing to look, his physical talent obviously like was unbelievable, but how many people in the NBA have this, physical talent like Michael Jordan has? Probably most of them. And I'm comparing it with bowling too, right? How many people have bowling talent like that are all on the same physical level? I'd say probably a lot of them. What separates them from everybody else, Mike, is their mental game. And Michael Jordan's mental game, you could just the way he talked and the way he worked and the way he just did things, it just separated him from everybody else. And it's an unbelievable thing to watch and to try to learn, right? Like, and listen to what he says and how he did things.
I mean, to me, what I gather from the documentary is that he was on a relentless pursuit to be great and be the best. And then nothing was going to stand in his way. He didn't care. It makes me want to ask Rob, who is the closest player to Michael Jordan from the PBA Tour? I think it's a pretty obvious answer, but
I mean, like, look, like this is just like the same kind of is like who's the greatest of all time. But like honestly, like I really, really have to say it's Belmonte, because Belmonte is not giving up until he's got bigger aspirations than just like making the most money, right? Because it's not about money to turn some people, right? It wasn't about money for Michael Jordan. Yeah, he had his endorsements and there was a little bit of talk about it, the money aspect, but it really wasn't about money, right? Kobe Bryant, I could probably say, was on the same kind of mental level as Michael Jordan in the fact where he would outwork anybody and he wanted to strive to be the greatest of all time. Now, did Kobe get there? No. But like Kobe, yeah, you could maybe put him in the Mount Rushmore in the top 5 in the NBA. But when it comes to bowling, I think Belmonte has more of a statement to be made based on just him making money. And I really feel Belmonte's mindset is I want to be the greatest bowler of all time.
As usual, you're wrong. I got to mop you. No, it's not Belmonte at all, Rob. It's Pete Weber. Okay, that's who Jordan. Yeah, it is.
No.
Why? Yes, it is. Here's why. Because the guy didn't care. The guy didn't care. The guy was going to do whatever he needed to do to get himself to the winner's circle. It didn't matter. If he had to invent somebody smack talking him, he was going to invent someone smack talk, just like Jordan in the documentary. If you've seen it yet, since you're a few episodes behind, as always.
Pete Weber's more like Dennis Rodman than.
No, get the hell out of here! What? That's Rob. That's crazy. That's crazy. Okay?
The reason why I disagree with you.
Jacob Buttriff is more the Dennis Rodman of the PBA Tour than Pete Weber is, okay?
No, look, the reason why, and I'm kidding about the Dennis Rodman, okay? Like, that's just because the reason why I disagree with you completely is because Pete had that talent and had that ability to be a Michael Jordan type bowler, but his mental game and the way he did things, and especially in his younger days, was completely an opposite of how Michael Jordan would have done things. Okay, Pete got involved in probably some other aspects of the partying and the other aspects.
The partying, the golfing before playing. I mean, listen, I think there's a lot of comparisons there to be made. You know,
Pete Weber, you could compare with Mike Tyson. Okay, Mike Tyson would go out party the night before, and then.
Oh my God, you're out of line, son. You're out of line. But
hey, I'm saying, like, I don't put Pete on the Michael Jordan level. No, I would. Belmonte is
won the U.S. Open 5 times, son. He won it 5 times. Okay.
Yeah, but it's not about the accomplishments. It's about how the way of doing it and how he did it. Right.
I'm saying he didn't care. He doesn't care what anybody thinks about him. He doesn't care what his opponents think about him. Just like Jordan, if he had to push his teammates, he was going to push his teammates. If he had to fight Steve Kerr, he was going to fight Steve Kerr.
Well, let me ask you, though, because this is an interesting topic here. If bowling, hypothetically, was a team sport, right? Can you see Pete Weber being like a leader and a captain and like
yes,
leading a team?
I think Pete Weber being the guy to go up to somebody else and say, yo, you ain't pulling your weight, son. Get it together.
Okay? Or he's going to be the guy that says, like, I'm going to do things my way, and if you don't want to listen to me, I'm going to go to another team. He could be. You never know. He could be that type. I mean, look, like, we'll never know, but it's a good topic of conversation because, like, watching this documentary just makes me really appreciate, one, how good Michael Jordan was, and two, look, I've been under the flames before for making this opinion, and I'm changing it after watching this. And I always used to call Phil Jackson the most overrated coach in the NBA. And now after watching this and seeing what actually Phil was doing, it's making me change my opinion on that.
I mean, that's a lot of personalities to manage.
A lot of personalities. You see what they did with Dennis? They let him go to Vegas for 24 hours to party.
That was awesome, wasn't it?
Dude, that's incredible. Like, what coach nowadays would do that? Like, who would let this guy go to Vegas for 2 days to party his balls off and then come back and go back to practice? And they're joking around about it. They're going, yeah, Rodman, his body is here, but his spirit is not. Like, and I'm just dying. I'm like, dude, this is crazy.
Yeah, no, it is. Really interesting documentary. You know, earlier this year, Flow Bowling did a great job with the documentary on Simonson, right? They just re-released that this week. I think, somewhat hype it up a lot of stuff that's already been put out already, but I understand in these current times, they did show some behind-the-scenes footage of that, but, like, that's kind of the closest thing we've had in bowling. A League of Ordinary Gentlemen showed a little bit, not so much the personal side of the guys, but more the tour. So you haven't really seen that kind of extensive coverage of these guys on the PBA Tour. But, yeah, it's interesting, Rob. So who's the Scottie Pippen of the PBA Tour? Then I guess that's one of the things to me that comes out of this documentary is I forgot about him sitting out that shot. I mean, you probably didn't see that part in his last week's episodes, but, man, there's a point where they're in there's a game and it's a last-second shot in the playoffs against the Knicks, and Phil Jackson elects to give the shot to Kukoc, and Scottie Pippen refuses to go back in the game.
Wow.
And listen, I want to say, I had that happen to me.
Oh, yeah?
In my high school coaching career, Rob. Yeah, crazy story. I'm going to – actually, you know what? I'm going to tell it. So – We were very good. We were very dominant when I had a high school bowling team in the area that I lived in.
Yeah, you've mentioned that a few times on the show.
Have you? Yeah. Well, do you see this right here? You see this right here? Okay. Those
You've mentioned that one or two times in the show.
Some of the state championship rings we've won. Bombers represent. Okay, so we were rather dominant, right? And we had a deep lineup. 6-7 guys that could really play. So if somebody was having an off day, I didn't hesitate to put somebody else in. And we also had a tradition on our team where if we were winning an event and it was in the 10th frame, and I had a chance to pull out one of the starters, right, to let in one of the quote-unquote bench players that didn't get to play that day, even if it was for a couple frames. If we had things wrapped up and there were no individual awards on the line whatsoever, and I knew that everything was good, I would pull a player, I would put another player in who didn't bowl all day just to go fill a 10th frame to say,
sure,
hey, you participate in this victory with us too.
Rudy. It's like the Rudy syndrome.
Yeah. And it started as a thing with a kid on my team who was sick and not able to practice one week, and I did it at the state championship, and it continued on from there. So fast forward a couple years after that, and we're at a state qualifying event, and I had a guy on my team who was usually the 6th man, but that morning our 5th man was struggling a little bit. I decided to go with the 6th man because he had a good look, and he shot like 2-0. His look wasn't all that great, but, he was bowling fine. He was making spares. There was no reason to take him out. I didn't take him out, and the 6th man that day, who was usually a starter, right, but he was the 6th man that day, I turned to him as the day was wrapping up, and I said, all right, man, go ahead, wrap up this 9th and 10th frame, get in there for us, enjoy this victory, celebrate with us. We're going to win the state sectional title, go on the state finals. And he turns to me and says, I'm not going in for that. I was like, oh, okay, all right. And, long story short, that was pretty much the end of his days in our program, at that time. But, I just feel like you can't have that kind of attitude around a team that's working towards a common goal. And there's a part of the documentary where Scottie Pippen does that. So really struck me. I forgot about that. But who's the Scottie Pippen of the PBA Tour, Rob?
That's tough to answer because of a few reasons. One, because I think Scottie Pippen, and they even say in the documentary, like, he learned a lot from Michael Jordan when it came to like his work ethic, and you don't know how good of a player Scottie Pippen would have been without Jordan. And I kind of feel like in bowling, it's a tough comparison because bowling's not a team sport, and everybody's got to be individually accomplished to be a professional and be on the PBA. You don't know if Scottie never went to the Bulls. You don't know if Scottie would have just been a mediocre or a good player, or if he would have been as good as he was, right? No, you'll never know that, and that's playing a what-if game, right? So I kind of feel like, I can't answer that. Normally, I would give some bullshit. I would throw something out and be like, yeah, this guy is, but no, it's tough that's tough comparison. I can't do it.
Okay, fair enough.
Mike, and let me say something real quick. I would love to tell you a story about when I got pulled my freshman year at Saginaw Valley by the coach's wife pulled me. So yeah, that was interesting. I'll make this a real short story because we got a lot on this episode. I was bowling the St. Louis tournament, and it's usually the St. Louis tournament. We usually took about 225 median average. I bowled 268, 20, 190. So I was right around like 660. And coach, my coach, Dan Dorian, rest in peace, Dan Dorian. He pulled me, and I was just like, I can't why. I bowled I'm 660. Well, the last 2 games you were below 25, below average, whatever. And I was like, all right, whatever. So I was pissed. I threw my shoes. I went out to the back, and this girl who bowled for a different team was watching, and she came over and she's like, hey, Rob, coach didn't really pull you. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, the wife who come to the tournament went over to Dan during the middle of the tournament, and right when I bowled a 190 game, and said, you need to get Rob out of there. And he looked at her, and then he pulled me. That didn't sit good with me, Mike. You want to talk about a Scottie Pippen type reaction? I then managed to call his wife Godzilla, and yeah, it was
Wow, son. Wow.
honest to God story. I said some mean words, left. Ended up getting put back in like 3 games later because my replacement wasn't bowling shit. And I averaged like 230 something the rest of the tournament. You know what I mean? So
we always know what happens when somebody, talks that shit on Rob Piershot. I mean,
dude, I called her Godzilla. Like, I swear to you, like I was a bad.
What's wrong with you, son?
But so hey, like.
No, listen, I think we've all had our moments, right? I won't waste people's time recalling, but yeah, it's similar. I got pulled from a tournament my freshman year, I think, up at Penn State, and I was none too happy about it, and left the bowling center, went and sat out in the person who I drove with car and listened to music for a block. So yeah, we've all had our moments. I mean, I think that in a certain way, though, like you see with Jordan in the documentary, right, to bring it back, somebody who has that attitude wants to win, right? They want to win. They want to be great. Like, they don't just want to go out and compete. They want to be the best. They want to be great. And honestly, I think that we all had that attitude at one time or another, because we were all at that level of competition for some time. So, it's an awesome documentary to watch. I hope Flow Bowling. I know that they just teased the documentary about two-handed, but honestly,
you know what it is though, Mike, and this is just coming from experience. It all started with Michael and his siblings, and his dad, and that's how his competitive. And I could understand that, being the youngest and having 2 older brothers who were established, recognized bowlers as kids. And here I am, 6 years younger than my oldest and then 2 years younger than my middle brother, trying to step out of the Dave and Jeff's shadow as a kid, which pushed me to bowl more and pushed me to be better, try to be better than them. Because, they used to give me so much shit when I was a junior if I didn't make the step ladder or if I didn't win titles. And they were, so I understand why that it was the way Michael was, and that carries on the rest of your life. Like you have everything in your life, and that's where Michael was. And I just finished the Dream Team episode, and dude, could you imagine have been at that pickup game, the practice game that they were talking about, where the best game that nobody ever saw, Mike? And that reminds me of some of the greatest matches or practice that I've had when I was a kid bowling against my brother, where I'm thinking, man, I wish they could have filmed that, right?
Yeah.
Like,
dude, did you just compare a game with the Dream Team to a match between you and your brother, son?
Yes.
Is that where you heard that? I think you're going to like a comparison to some of the great action matches that nobody's heard of, Bob Perry stories, etc. And you go to you and your brother. All right, we got to drop that. We got to move on.
All right.
Move on. You got to catch up on the documentary.
I'm just trying to make a comparison here, Mike.
You can't be talking about this shit if you haven't watched it, son.
You're killing me, Smalls. All right, let's move on.
Me, son. You're killing all of us. Killing all of us. The listeners and everybody. Killing everybody. Damn. All right. Rob, Sweep the Rack has a new logo.
Yes, we do. And I'm really pumped to unveil our new logo, Mike. It's going to be really cool to promote it.
Probably see some similarities in the logo and our episode tonight.
So yeah. So I'm gonna. You ready are we ready? Should we get a drum roll?
I don't know if we need that.
Mike, tell me that's not badass.
Boom. Sweep the Rack. New logo.
Look at that. Isn't that awesome? I appreciate definitely our guy here who did that and took the time. And Mike, you're wearing the same shirt right now. Look at that. So
and the same hat as well. And I just want to point out, I guess we'll each highlight one aspect of the logo. I want to highlight the city background, Rob, highlighting our connection to our city upbringing.
Absolutely. And we got a rack in there, Mike. Look at that.
You see the rack? Notice the rack.
The rack. And look at that. They got good pictures. I wish he would have went a little bit bigger with the arms, Mike. I feel like he did me a little bit dirty, with the size of my arms because, I feel like I'm a lot bigger in person and I got a little bit more muscle, but, I'll take it.
Okay. New logo from Sweep the Rack. So, Rob, people should look out for that on Twitter, Instagram, right? There'll be that change. And I know from my own, use, like you often look for somebody's avatar, you become familiar with it. So we just wanted to give people the heads up that, they'll see that change on there. So new logo for Sweep the Rack. Always, we're trying to keep things fresh, Rob.
Hey, the logo is to me, it's like, it's what drive. It's like your picture. It's your brand, right? And I felt like we needed a fresh, identity with a fresh logo, and we're doing it in the video now, and I feel like it was a perfect time to get that going.
So yeah, it's okay to put the characters out, right? Merch coming soon, Rob, or what?
Man, I do. I get a nice fitted with a Sweep the Rack logo, maybe a couple of V-neck shirts,
Okay.
Maybe a bowling jersey.
That I'm down for. Actually,
that would be sick.
My league team, Rob, is named Sweep the Rack.
See? Maybe if I went bowl USBC tournament,
It's a total mooch thing that I do because the one guy on my team, shout to Mike D, if you're listening, I know he tunes in sometimes. He actually pays the sponsor fee in our league, and he owns a company that we usually name the team after. But I was like, oh, do you mind if we name it Sweep the Rack Podcast? He was like, yeah, sure, that's fine. And he still paid the sponsor fee. So I kind of mooched off of that. So
I can imagine whole team wearing me on the back of their shirt. So,
No, it would have to be the front of the shirt, Rob, right?
I know.
Sweep the Rack would be like, on the bottom there. Listen, I got to get a jersey, bro. I'm serious. I have to get a jersey because you don't bowl, right? You just bullshit and you don't bowl. But I actually bowl events around my area. So I could use a couple jerseys, and I would rock them, man, because, hey, there's people out there that listen, that watch, tune in, and they see me out there. Say what's up.
First off, watching The Last Dance makes me want to come out of retirement, Mike.
Put Rocky on, son. Put Rocky on.
Makes me want to come out to 4-5, which I haven't got to yet. They haven't came back. They haven't got to that part yet. So, that'll be me coming out of retirement. But, hey.
No, Rob, the entire world has seen that part. You just haven't. Okay. So
I just like to watch everything at once, Mike.
All right, Rob, as we're recording this, the PBA League draft has been going down.
And I heard there's a controversial number 1 pick.
Yeah, Sean Rash didn't go first. It's crazy.
Who's the manager of that team? That pick?
No disrespect to Francois Laveau. Pick
number 1. Who's the manager? Who made that decision?
I believe it was one of the new teams. It was either Milwaukee or Las Vegas. I want to say it was Milwaukee who had the first pick. I'm not 100% sure about that, though.
Well,
Amleto Monticelli made the first pick. I know that.
Who?
Amleto.
Mike, that's a terrible pick. That is a terrible, terrible pick. I'm not just saying that to be controversial, right? It's a terrible pick.
That's not a hot take. Like, if you're building a team and you have a chance to pick Sean Rash, you pick Sean Rash.
Now, let me ask you, do you think this has something to do with maybe his fallout with his last team? And
I don't know. I mean, listen, I don't want to get into rumors, right? I'm not.
I'm asking your opinion, not a rumor.
I know, but listen, I'm not here to espouse background information or inside information. That's not my intent here.
I'm asking your opinion. I'm not asking for inside info. I'm asking what
you're asking me if the how people perceive him, I guess, has anything to do with that. No,
I'm asking if that maybe was an influence, and why wouldn't they pick him number 1? Like, what, in your opinion, Is it? I mean,
I don't
there's
know.
dude. Sean Rash is the top 3 bowler right now on tour, and he's a top 3 bowler. I'm not talking 5. He's a top 3, right? And
I think top 3 is arguable. I would say top 5. No,
right now,
no question. Top 5.
What?
No question. Top 5.
And you're picking a new franchise, and you need a franchise player.
Listen, there's 10 teams, right? And each of those teams has at least 2 or 3 guys on it.
I know.
Already, 30 guys deep.
I know.
In the league, and you have a chance to get a top 5 guy.
I know.
I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know.
It's and hey, I'm gonna go on the record. Is I gave shit to Phil Brylow when he did your mock draft about passing up. And if it's Umleta, I'll give him shit too. I don't care if that is. I don't care who made that pick. I'll give shit to.
Like Sean Rash is a guy. You get him on your team. He's on your team for the next, 7 to 10 years.
Dude, Frank. Look, like you said, not a knock on Frankie.
No, not at all.
Frankie, look, U.S. Open champion, has done a lot, but he's not Sean Rash, Mike. I mean, spade is spade, right? Well, we'll see.
No question.
We'll see how that plays out. It's kind of like that meme, Mike, the dodgeball meme. It's a bold move, bold strategy, Cotton. We'll see how that pays off.
But listen, I think that it's. I understand the hype around this.
Oh,
right? I get it. Okay.
Well, I mean,
I'm not gonna say that I don't get it, but I really don't understand it. I don't share in it. I wasn't really looking forward to the PBA draft for the PBA league, and this is a big deal. And there was even an article in the New York Times that Tom Clark tweeted out about the PBA's back with the draft. I mean, Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this more of like an exhibition type event? A side event to the regular PBA tour than it is something that deserves this kind of hype or attention, etc.
I understand what the PBA is doing. I understand that completely.
I get it, but Rob, shouldn't those efforts be better put into actually getting live bowling on TV right now? Because as we've discussed, it is possible to do professional bowling with social distancing even right now. Wow. Cornhole is on, Rob.
Oh, God.
And we got beef with some cornhole cornballs, okay, out there in the social media world. People are hitting me up saying, yo, are you really beefing with these cornhole guys? Or do you know them? I said, let me be clear. I do not know them. Okay? I do not know them.
You know what's funny, though?
And we are beefing with them because I turn on ESPN and I see cornhole, Rob. I see cornhole. Come on, Rob, if that's possible, bowling should be on there, man. And let's be clear, if bowling was on, every sports network out there would abandon cornhole like an unwanted stepchild. Okay? They would be gone. They would be gone for bowling. Bowling is a much better product than cornhole. All right? I'll stand behind that. And I get it, Rob. I understand. But I'm just saying, as a fan of the game, as a fan of the sport, as a fan of the PBA Tour, I like the PBA League. I have much love for Bayside. You and I have both made treks out there just to check it out and be a part of the crowd, etc. Much love for Bayside, okay? But with all that said, this is not the centerpiece of the PBA Tour.
No, and it's not like the NFL draft is, right?
No. Rob, they just postponed the event.
I know.
So there's been all this hype around the draft, right? And then they just postponed the event. I know it's only postponed to the fall. I'll be surprised if it runs in the fall. I'll be surprised if international travel is open in the fall. And Rob, let's be clear. We're kind of getting into our weekly discussion here of coronavirus with bowling updates, and that's going to be a part of our episode tonight too.
But wait,
yeah. But go ahead.
Here's the thing, the difference, and I'm going to go on the cornhole post, right, or the beef, right? You know what the difference between
people, son.
But wait. You see,
you're watching this. If you cornhole people are watching this, let me catch you out there, son.
Let me explain something, though. And this is going to be something that I'm going to knock on bowling, right, over cornhole, okay? The difference between bowling and cornhole is I've watched the cornhole events on TV before, which are actually pretty cool. And everybody's played cornhole, especially Mike. We love the tailgate, right? We're big tailgaters. So we've played our cornhole. Now, you watch these people on cornhole and you watch them, and being a social cornhole guy who have no idea the intricacies of cornhole, right? And I look at the people on TV and I say, how the hell are they doing that, Mike? Like they would literally throw it in a hole around 7 bags, which is crazy to me. Now, the knock on bowling is people that watch bowling on TV and they see somebody bowling like a 99, right? Just throwing that out there, or 140. They're going, oh, I could do that. But now one time that I look at the cornhole and I watched that on TV and I said, well, I could do that. And that's going, and I'm comparing now with, like, we always talk about the low scores, right? And the high scores and whatnot. To me, like, that has been a big thing before. We've talked about guests that have been on our show that have talked about, like, the separation between the pros and, like, the league bowling. The league bowlers think they could do that, right? When they see professional bowlers on TV. Now, if I'm in a cornhole league, or if I'm playing cornhole, now one time that I sit there and think, oh, I could do that. Honestly, it's the same thing with golf. It's the same way, right? There's not one time in my life where I went on to watch TV and golf and said, wow, I could do what they're doing. And that's why you pay money to go see them, Mike.
I disagree with golf. I mean, I think the difference between cornhole and golf and bowling is that if you go out and you play them, in golf and bowling, it becomes very obvious very quickly that you cannot do what those other people are doing. In cornhole, I kind of feel like, yeah, it's not so obvious that you can't get it in and hit it. Whatever. Listen, I turned that shit on for 2 seconds. I turned it right off. Okay, I had no time for that. It just pissed me off. That's all it did. It pissed me off thinking about how is this able to run and bowling can't run? I mean, come on. Like that's all. It just made me angry, And there's
a fair point
on the PBA. I get it, totally get it. I understand hype environment, Bayside. You want to keep it there, push it back. I agree with that decision, but let's chill with the hype. Let's put the time and effort and thought into creating something that can go on TV right now. Because Rob, what I see at the current moment right now is that other sports are starting to catch up already. Okay, you're losing that window where you would have the sole focus.
They already lost it, Mike.
Today, NASCAR was on today.
They already lost it.
You think
they lost it?
I don't know about that. I think you got a little bit of time left.
They lost it.
Nah, I think you got maybe 2-3 weeks left before it really starts to become.
They're not putting anything together in the next 2-3 weeks, Mike. So
yeah, no, I hear you. I wish it were different, but
they have a draft though tonight. So I mean, hey, it's something.
I'm gonna check it out. Our boy's hosting. Okay, so I'll definitely be checking it out.
I wonder what Bill said about that pick though with Rash.
While we're here recording tonight, so
what did Bill say about that pick with Rash? That's what I want to see.
I didn't get to hear the commentary.
No. I'm going to watch it and I'm going to see what he said. And if Bill agreed with it or was real PC, I'm going to text him.
He better have kept it real.
He better.
Real.
Yeah, or else I'm going to give him shit next time he's on the show.
Problem with that. All right, Rob. Let's talk about what we got for the people tonight, right? Because we're still in that kind of transition period between like audio that we were doing before and the video that we're doing now. So we're kind of going back and forth with some of our guests, and we have some old bank material that we want to get out there that we think is really good, but it's not with the new format. So we basically have 2 pieces for the people tonight, right? and we have one new format piece and one old format piece. The new format piece is an interview with somebody who's been on before, a local tournament director of events that I go to, does an excellent job, and we've had him on, college bowler, amateur bowler, etc. Greg Tack, and I kind of alluded to it before, Rob. We're going to go a little bit deeper into the conversation about bowling coming back and what it's going to look like and when that might happen and what our thoughts are on that. And I thought that it was an interesting conversation. I'm not going to give too much away, but Greg was under the impression that he might be running tournaments as early as the end of May or the beginning of June. So we kind of start the conversation off there and go from there. So we have that for the people. Any comments on that, Rob?
There's a tournament that's going to be happening at the end of May in California. They've already sold out their first squad of 36 entries, and they're already running a B squad. And he's having everybody pay up front because of crazy amount of people that want to enter. So people are PayPaling and Venmoing money up front. So Mike, when you talk about like you not wanting to bowl tournaments, people are starving. They're thirsty.
Go ahead, take your chances. It's not that important to me.
They're thirsty right now to bowl these people. Like going to USB.
A lot of those people probably suck too.
So it's going to be free money out there.
They donating your money.
No, there's some players that are bowling. Trust me, but
just to get your ass kicked, you're putting yourself at risk. So, yeah. So fair enough. And then Rob, to follow up the Greg Tack video interview that we have,
the best.
We have a great interview, right? I mean, it's one that we had on our list from the beginning. Now we'll say that the interview is definitely geared toward people who grew up on the same area that we did, the Northeast coast, because the person that we're interviewing is Chuck Pezzano Jr. And he's the guy who, for many years, since the late 70s, has run the Junior Bowlers Tour, which is an organization, and we'll give it to you in the intro and throughout the interview too. But it's an tournament organization for junior bowlers that has produced numerous PBA Hall of Famers throughout the years, Rob.
Yeah, this interview is, I still feel like everybody could listen to it because of, especially if you want to understand how someone starts a huge tournament organization and as successful as he is. And he also puts in some really good stories about dealing with, parents and dealing with
there's some gems there. There's some gems in that interview.
Sure.
There's a story about parent running side action.
Yes.
For real money. There's a story about some over-aggressive parents and parents that we knew from our days of bowling JVTs who, were like extra hard on kids, et cetera. So, yeah, I agree. I think the interview is good for anybody to listen to, but if you're an East Coast person and you bowl JVTs, this is a can't miss interview.
Yeah, I feel like this was an interview more for us because
it was fun, man. I mean, to hear some of the names that come up in this interview and some of the memories and listen, Chuck's a good dude, right? We have a lot of history with him and he's a good dude. So it was fun to have him on and chop it up with him and hear from him. So that's what we got for the people tonight, Rob. We'll check back in. After everything is over. And we'll run that for everybody. But, yeah, enjoy, and we'll keep it moving for the people, Rob. All right, Rob. So as we've talked about a little bit in previous episodes, right, and honestly, I don't mean to be repetitive, but I think that this topic bears some more conversation. And I think it's an interesting topic to talk about given the current circumstances of things. So we're going to bring on a guest tonight just for a little short conversation. It's somebody who we've had on the show before, Greg Tack. He's a tournament director in New Jersey. NewJerseySportBowling.com, I believe, is his website. They're on Facebook as well. We're just going to have a little chat about the current shutdown, what things might look like when things come back, how this shutdown might affect competitive bowling, league bowling, et cetera. So, Rob, you down?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I actually saw a picture yesterday online where some bowling center put on like these like red shutters, like separators.
Right, the partitions.
Please, dude.
I saw the same thing for casinos. I saw the same exact thing for like a poker table with plastic partitions in it. All right, let's bring Greg on. Maybe we can start
we'll
conversation there. Let's make him part of it as well.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
Greg, what's good, man? How are you?
I heard you talking about the red shutters. It's going to look really different. I saw a picture. Ramon Hilfern has put one up. I've already tested it out in his bowling center, and he seems to have been doing fine with it. It's going to look a little weird, but I think it's something that can be adjusted if it gets people back in the alley.
Mike, wait. I got to jump in here.
Wait, 1 second. What bowling center was that, Greg?
I'm not sure the title of the bowling center.
Oh, it's not local. It's not around us? Okay. All right. That picture, Rob, when I saw it posted on the USBC page, it actually came from the Monmouth County Bowling Association, which is the association that I'm a local member of. That's the area where I bowl my Tuesday night league. So I don't know if Greg has some information on the origins of that picture. Obviously, it wasn't from Monmouth County. They must have just put it out. But go ahead, Rob. What do you think about that, man?
How am I supposed to intimidate people while I'm bowling, Mike, if they can't see me?
I love it. How you supposed?
It's a clear backdrop, so you can still see through it.
Oh, so now I'm going to be red now. So I'm going to be red intimidating.
You're going to be able to, like, you can subtly talk crap to them.
By the way, it's such a bad idea because I guarantee if I bowled an 8-game tournament, by game 3, at least 2 of them would be on the floor. I would kick you. I'd be kicking them, punching them. I would God hope that they're not like solid, like steel, because, they would be smart if they put like cushions. So then if you threw a bad shot, you could just give it like an overhand right and like nothing would happen. So I'd be interested to see what those things are made out of. And, if it's going to be good, if it's going to be soft on the fist, because that's really important.
So Rob couldn't wait to jump in to tell us that he can't wait to test the durability of these new social distancing measures in bowling settee areas.
Absolutely.
That's a great contribution.
I do.
I saw the same picture, to be a little more serious about it. I don't know, man. I don't know about bowling in that kind of environment. I mean, if that's the lengths we have to go to be able to just go and have a regular league night or bowl in a local tournament like the tournament Greg runs, I don't know, man. I mean, it just is very odd to me. I know there's going to be a lot of new normals in this, but it's just something that I don't know right away. If to me it's saying if we have to do that, maybe it's too early to come back, period.
Entries are going to be, Greg, now let me ask you, when do you feel like, in your opinion, like tournament bowling will be back? And will your entries be affected from this whole deal?
Well, hold on, Greg, before you answer. Rob, one of the reasons he came on is because the other day he sent something out on Facebook, and he's smirking because he knows what I'm going to say, but he sent something out on Facebook saying, "Oh, my May events are still on." And I texted him, Greg, what are you talking about?
May.
What are you saying?
Lucky July.
I'm gonna let him speak to that a little bit, because we had a conversation on the show. But just to give you that background, that's the most recent conversation him and I had personally.
Okay.
Where, I kind of hit him up like, "Yo, dude, May, I'm hardcore, and you ain't gonna catch me in a bowling alley at a minimum until September." And quite honestly, and we'll talk about this as we go on. To me, it's probably going to be later than that. But go ahead, Greg. I'll let you speak to what you have going on and what your thoughts are there.
There's been a lot of research on my end. The CDC has the guidelines on 50+ members through May 15th, and that expires in 10 days. If the president's social distancing guidelines have lifted, doesn't mean that people will all of a sudden crowd in places and stuff like that. But from what it looks like things are becoming more back to the way they used to be. So my planning was that if nothing gets extended and people are allowed to go back to business, I think in New Jersey it's May 20th. That gives my events are scheduled for May 30th and May 31st. Then I was going to combine them into a Masters tournament, and I would have squads where people could sign up as a pair of 4, and they would have to sign up together, and they'd bowl with each other, and I'd separate them by pairs, and we'd have in the 32 lane centered, we'd cap it at 32 entries in the squad, and we would have a very systematic approach to enter. People would have to wait in their cars to check in. They'd have to go to their lanes. They'd have to lift their bowling balls, wear masks to check in. And then when they got to their lanes, they would leave their equipment on their starting pair. When they got to their starting pair, they would have their practice. They would bowl their game. All the entry fees would be taken care of online. Then after the game is done, I'd get on the speaker. The bowlers would not move, actually. They would not move until everybody finished. And then when the bowling got done for the game, I'd get on the speaker and say, okay, lanes 1 and 17 can move, and lanes 2 and 19 can move. And the reason for doing it was so that people could avoid
Jesus Christ.
Go ahead, Rob. Go ahead.
First off, I want to say instantly that is obviously very well thought out plan.
Listen,
like,
everything
honestly,
Greg does, Rob, everything Greg does with his tournaments is well thought out. But come on now,
sure.
Come on.
I mean, I'm gonna say like I just don't see it happening. Like
look, like hardcore of the hardcore, like people who have to be out there bowling might show up and bowl, but.
Like, really? Like, is it that important for people to go out there and like bowl a tournament? Like, and they can't even like. I feel like you're describing the scene of Seinfeld when they're ordering soup from the soup Nazi. Literally, it's just like crab bisque, and you forgot my bread.
Lane 14. We're gonna move.
That's what I feel like. You are Greg. Like that. It sounds exactly like that scene. Like I just can't imagine you controlling, like having that much control over like people. Like, I mean, what about if someone wants to order a beer? Is the waitress going to come over and hand them a beer? And the waitress is going to be wearing a mask? And oh my goodness,
that's the way that's gonna happen. And in between squads, I mean, we cap it at 32, and then between squads, we'll have an opportunity for people to move out, but it'll be organized, it'll be systematic. And if people need a bowl that badly, I certainly recognize the fact that it's potentially wild to consider a tournament right now. But I mean, I haven't heard the answer no from the people at Howell, and I haven't heard the answer no from the state. I haven't heard the answer no from the government. So as far as I'm concerned, I need to schedule it and plan it like it's still happening.
All right, I don't know, man. What are your thoughts, Greg, on entries for that? I mean, would you expect people to show up and bowl, or would you not be surprised if only a handful of people show up or enter?
I wouldn't be surprised if people were freaked out by the concept of entering a tournament. I think, and not to speak in terms of age, but I think in terms of people's risks, it seems like the older they get, the more at risk they are for this virus. So logistically speaking and logically speaking, I would think the curve of the age would go something like this, and it would just rise as you got older. So perhaps you'd see a lot of young people at the event, but perhaps as you got a little older, people would start to not enter because they didn't want to have the virus. They didn't want to have a risk to get the virus.
Yeah, I would stay away from the senior division there if you plan on running one.
I think that my age crowd, as it usually is, runs between mostly 22 to like 35 is my most pull, my biggest pull. Anywhere like that.
Here's the thing is like, and I could see people showing up for this, and from what Mike tells me, you get a lot of entries through your tournaments every month before this whole thing happened. You know, you were getting a lot of term. And I kind of feel like just in the net, just from social media, it feels like it's almost like a 50-50 or even like a 60-40 split between people who are like Mike and who are going to be like, screw this shit, I'm staying home. Like, there's no way you're catching me anywhere other than the grocery store or at my house. Or there's other people that are like, you know what, like, I don't give a shit. I'm going out. I'm not wearing a mask. I'm going to live my life the way I want to live it. I'm not listening to the media. I'm not listening to, you know, the powers that be. So I feel like you're still going to get people that are going to show up because they're going to be like, screw this, I'm bowling. I don't care. I'm having a beer. I'll get the flu, right? And that's what their thought mindset is. It's worth the risk. So I do feel like you'll get some entries, though. Like, that's just my opinion.
But Rob, at what point is it like not even worth it to run it? I mean, if you get 15 or 20 entries, I don't really think that that's worth the effort that somebody's putting in to run it. You know,
fair point.
Right, we talked a little bit about trying. Here's what. First of all, Greg, you're scaring the shit out of me because before you said that, I didn't even really think about what it might look like when tournament bowling comes back. Because to me, in my opinion, as I kind of alluded to before, it's going to be a while. I just really think it's going to be some time. I don't really see tournaments like yours, Greg, coming back until January 2021. I understand, I get it, but for people to really and go in the bowling alley in mass amounts and interact with each other in the way that you have to do in those type of situations, it may be that long. But here's something that I'm really thinking about right now as we're sitting here having this conversation. If somebody like Greg, who runs these events, is thinking about these types of changes, and let's be clear, these are radical changes you're talking about, right? You're talking about running a bowling tournament military style, okay? So if we're talking about those kinds of changes, right, and that's just for a tournament, that's just for a small tournament, right, with 4 on a pair, as you said, guys, what does that mean for league bowling? If we're saying the things we're saying about a tournament with 32 people and 4 on a pair, what does that mean for league bowling where in some leagues there's 10 on a pair?
Right away, the thought that comes to mind is they're going to do it in shifts. They're going to have league shifts. They're going to split the league in half, and it is essentially going to be, I don't even think you'll have teams on the same pair until, like, I say September as a standard. I don't think summer leagues will run. I've been a little bit more optimistic about my prediction, and I think bowling will be back in its fullest by September. I'm planning. Okay, so let's say your prediction's right, but centers are going to have to be open, and this might be a turning point, but centers need to get open for their sake. They need to have something. They need to have some business in the building, and if the league is a big source of income, and I
get that, but no, they're going to have to think outside the box. Their income from league bowling is going to be down for a while. Their income from competitive bowling is going to be down for a while. I agree with you that they need to open up, but perhaps they need to focus on, limited people. Listen, Greg, it's going to be the same for everything. When restaurants open up, they're not going to let full capacity in right away. So restaurants are going to have to operate with 50 or 25% capacity for a lot of the time. Bowling centers aren't going to be exempt from that. So they're going to have to get into this new reality of operating with less business coming through the doors for a little while. But listen, I'm not even sure many of them can survive that situation, even if the doors are open and they have 50% of the business that they had before. That may not be enough. Rob, you want to comment? I see you're nodding in agreement there.
Yeah, I think it's going to change the landscape of any kind of indoor entertainment facilities, and not just bowling. I mean, if you really think about like some of these, restaurants / bars / entertainment places that you maybe play video games and that whatnot, and I could put that group in all within bowling. Now, if I'm a parent and I have kids and I have, just a big surrounding, like the last place I'm going to want to take them is to a bowling center, right? Like, so, but like I said, that's just like a percentage of the people. The other percentage of the people don't give a shit. Like, I'm going to drink my beer. I'm not wearing my mask. I don't care. So like, but will the bowling alleys survive if what Mike's prediction comes true and say, well, it's just not going to get normal until maybe January, right? Or even Christmas time. Because you got to keep in mind too here is during the summer months, the virus is probably going to be a lot lower because from what I read, now I'm not an expert, is the virus is very, it's not as big in the summer, right? Like the flu months are usually in the fall and the winter. So if people all go out in the summer, it's going to set the country up for a really bad fall and winter. So that's a problem when they open up too early also. For bowling and league, what about the USBC tournament, right? They're predicting it to go in September. And they have 10 on a pair. And it's packed there. I mean, walking to the lanes, right? Think about the paddock room, right? Like, think about, like, when you go bowl a USBC tournament, like, I don't see that tournament getting – I don't know why they just don't cancel it for the whole year and just start up fresh next year.
Rob, it's a fairy tale. I mean,
it is.
They're making extreme modifications for that, similar to some of the things I'm proposing. I think that the centers, and I guess I can take this because I've run a lot of events at centers. I'm actually coming up on my 50th one. That's going to be at I've been talking to a lot of centers of late because I'm still trying to pump some enthusiasm in because I want to have an epic return. And so I'm going to be at Hazlitt for my 50th event, and I'm really excited about it. But the centers, when they run tournaments, their biggest revenue isn't actually from the bowling because league bowlers have a set rate. They have a set income, and in a full house with so many people on a pair, it might be, but in a tournament setting, it usually comes from their bar and their food. It's not actually from the bowling itself. And so when people go in and they spend money on the bowling, and then they spend money, they get a bite to eat, and they go to the bar. And when centers take advantage of that, they say, okay, we're going to have a $20 package. You get a beer, meal, and some bowling for an hour for $20. And you put out a package like that, and you get through you call it a quarantine package, and everybody will sweep to it. And I think you're going to see some unique business like that. In terms of league modification, I think you'll see some shortened leagues. I think you'll see split season. If Mike, if your prediction's true about them not coming back till January, they can't survive. A lot of centers can't survive a full half a league season and just not have leagues at all. They have to have some type of competitive bowling. So I think you'll see some trios leagues, some doubles leagues, something that it's cut back. Where the teams aren't as packed and interacted, and people are in and out. They go and they bowl their 3 games. They go in and have a beer. They hang out with their friends, and then they leave.
See, like here I'm picturing open bowling, right? Open bowling is a little bit easier. If you're a center and you have 32 lanes, right, which is probably average. Now you got to plan on probably having only open bowlers on 16 of the 32 lanes, right? You only give out pairs 1, 3, 5, and you just separate a lane. And then obviously if you're bowling on the same lane together, it's going to be, but league bowling is different because you're bowling against another team. So you have to be on the same pair technically. Now you can't put everybody in the area. You can't put everybody down. I don't know. The logistics of it is going to be a nightmare for league and tournament bowling. I think you're on the right path, Greg, but
how would you feel about this, Rob, in terms of being a league bowler? Like, picture a league where in week A or at time A, whatever it may be, either early time in the night or the week before, one team comes in and bowls on that particular pair, 15 and 16. And then later that night, the lanes get redone. Later that night, your opponents come in and they bowl a set on 15 and 16. And you compare scores. Like, see, I bowl
league for the social aspect of it. And you got to keep in mind, Mike, not all the leagues are competitive. Most leagues are recreational. Vegas leagues, mixed leagues.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree 100%. But that's why I'm saying, would you rather hang out with the people that you bowl on the team with, or hang out with the opponents? Or the people on the lane next to, I don't know. I mean, it's going to take some thinking out of the box.
I'd rather just not bowl and wait till next year and start over again. I mean, but that's just me because I'm not itching to bowl like some of these yahoos are online that are bowling in their backyards and shit. Like, we'll get to that
I'm
later.
Yahoos.
Yeah, just the people they're itching. They're like crack fiends. They're not bowling. They're like, oh my god, I gotta get my bowling ball. I got my shoes. Like it's like, dude, relax, man. Spend time with your family. Like chill out. Like bowling, hopefully, will be there when this whole thing like finishes. You know, so
You're not practicing at home, are you?
I've got a little machine.
Oh my god! You're not one of those
cool.
yahoos bowling in your backyard, are you?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Oh my god!
Show it on the screen. There it is, right there.
Come on.
Oh my goodness, God!
There it is. Got a bowling ball, and it's a rev machine, and it spins.
Great.
Yeah,
Great.
but you're not like 5-step approaching in your backyard in like street shoes, right? Throwing it down your sidewalk. Yeah, you are too. Oh, Mike, take the wheel here because I'm spinning out of control.
Listen, we're gonna wrap it up. Greg, we appreciate you being on. It's always a good convo. Listen, only time will tell, right? Only time will tell. I mean, we all give our opinions here and kind of lay things out for what we think, but only time will tell in terms of how things are going to play out. I can tell you this, Greg, I love your events. You're the man. I show up to a lot of them. I will not be at an event anytime in May. I can tell you that for sure. So
that is fine.
Luck, all that. I hope it goes well. And I think people are fucking crazy if they bowl it, but myself, I will not be there. So that is not saying anything about the quality of your events. That's just my own personal vibe right now. But listen, man, stay safe, stay healthy. Greg, tell the people where to check out the information about your organization, dog.
I will. So the organization, njsportbowling.com, where we have a domain now. Woohoo! At NJ Sport Bowling on Facebook, we have a group and a Facebook page. Then at NJ Sport Bowling on Twitter and Facebook. Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I don't really use Twitter very much with that account, but it's still there. We retweet a lot of PBA stuff.
All right, man. Take care. Be healthy. Be safe. And we'll talk again soon.
Good luck, Greg.
Take it easy. I challenge Brooklyn Rob to a game outside in the backyard.
Oh, man, you don't want any of this. You don't want any of this smoke.
I want the smoke, Rob.
Rob. With all due respect, Greg can play, dog.
I'm not. I didn't say he couldn't. I'm just saying. Backyard bowling. I grew up in Gil Hodges Lanes in Brooklyn. That's all we did is bowl in the backyard.
Greg, I really don't think you want any part of Rob on some rough surfaces because that was our expertise coming up. We bowled in church basements. Okay, so we know about that life. But
haunted church basements.
If Rob comes out to the East Coast and bowling has resumed, perhaps a Greg Tack Brooklyn Rob Dougie Vision match. Mm-hmm.
I'll do that. That would be great. I'll tell you what. I know you're trying to wrap up, but Dougie Vision could work with this because it's
Greg. Let me comment. Right.
Oh,
so he's got to listen to our past episodes, right? So I've said already that, and I believe strongly. I even tweeted it out today. The PBA, the highest levels of bowling, should be operating right now. There's no question in my mind about that because social distancing for the highest levels of bowling and certain other levels of bowling is easy to do, right? Yeah, you want to put an action night together? That's easy to do. That's easy to do with social distancing. You set up 2 chairs 6 feet apart in the back of the lane. You have 4 pairs going that are spread out, and that's not a really big problem. You want to bowl PBA? Yeah, you're not going to be able to bowl the regular formats with qualifying and 400 pair, but you can get it done if you want to. It's the other levels of bowling, Greg, that I really feel like are going to have a tough time coming back. So just to clarify there, but listen, you, Greg, and everybody else, go back, check out our past episodes, and you'll hear us chop it up about that. Because, we laid it out there. In fact, I read on Twitter today, and I retweeted this as well. Coley Edison made some comments on another podcast, I think with Bowler's Journal yesterday, saying that she's thinking about bringing the PBA back with some modified formats or some made-for-TV events. Rob, what's good, son? Are they listening or what?
Yeah, she's listening.
Sounds an awful lot like what I was saying on our podcast, to be honest with you.
They should make you a consultant.
They should. If she was a WWE fan, she would have had bowling on 2 months ago.
Yeah, no, listen,
Vince found a way.
I really believe it's doable. But Greg, listen, take care, man. Be safe, be healthy, and I hopefully will see you at a New Jersey sport bowling event in the near future, man.
Take care, Big Mike and Brooklyn Rob. You want the smoke, Brooklyn Rob?
Yo, he's got it.
He wants the smoke.
Be careful what you ask for.
He ain't afraid at all. Believe me.
I want the smoke. I'm not afraid of anybody.
Hey, if I strike, I'm gonna get in your face, but I'm gonna be 6 feet away.
I mean, you should be careful what you ask for sometimes. I'll say that, but
I'm gonna be talking shit 6 feet away from him.
You should text it to me.
I'll send you a tweet.
I'm gonna talk smack to you FaceTime.
I'll send you a tweet on the account you don't check.
All right, Greg, take it easy, man.
Take it easy, guys.
Mike, he's asking for the smoke, Mike.
Rob, yeah, listen, hey, that would be a good match, I think. It would be a good match because he likes to chirp a little bit too here and there. But
Mike, watching the Michael Jordan documentary on ESPN is making me want to put the bone shoes back on. You feel me?
I hear you. Yeah, it's been quite a good documentary. I agree.
I do give him credit though.
Yeah, interesting conversation. You know, Greg always has an interesting perspective on things, even when I talk to him outside of the podcast. So not surprised to hear some of the thought that he had given to what things might look like when it comes back, right?
I mean, he's probably, honestly, he probably has the most plan of anybody out there right now who's in the tournament industry, like of how a tournament is going to run. He's already has the what, who's going to be where, what's going to be doing what, like announcements, like that's what it's going to come down to if he's going to run a tournament. But here's where you made a major point, and this is completely on the same page. Is it worth the work? Is it worth the time? Is it worth it for someone who's going to maybe get like 20 to 30 entries? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're going to do all this work and plan all of this, make sure. And here's the other thing you got to think about too, Mike, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here, but as a tournament proprietor running a tournament, if something happens, Mike, if I get corona from the bowling center or COVID, is there a legal liability on this after the fact? Could I sue a bowling tournament or a bowling alley? Like, I'm throwing that out there. I mean, that's something I don't think anybody really, like, is that a valid point? I mean,
I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot of those questions, right? So I think a lot of things can be a valid point, but yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see how things come back, man. You know,
I guess you really couldn't prove it though, could you? Like, if I got like corona, could I?
No, you could have gotten it from anywhere, right?
I could have got it from anywhere, right? I'm just like thinking like this is a scary time right now because there's so many like unanswered questions.
Well, so even without that, even without the lawsuit, right? Like that angle, think about this. Say a bowling center reopens and any kind of COVID case gets traced back to that bowling center, and so, you know, officially in some way, whether one case, an outbreak, somebody hears, oh, guy Tuesday Night League has COVID-19. I mean, that could shut the place down for good. So there is that risk, I think, whether it's a legal risk, whether it's a word of mouth risk, whatever it is. I think there is that level of risk for really any business that's either operating right now or is going to come back from this, where they're gonna run that risk of being identified in that way and being connected to it. So yeah, it's tough, man. It's a tough situation. And
so, just real quick on that, Mike, and this is just from my professional experience with work. We've had a bunch of clients that are essential businesses, right? Manufacturing plants, okay? Get coronaviruses in those manufacturing plants. Guess what happens to those manufacturing plants?
Yeah, it's shut down. I mean, that's
shut down.
Yeah.
And you know how much money those guys are losing every day, those manufacturing plants? It's just like any other business. So like a bowling center, like, and I'm talking about the bowling, if a corona case or an outbreak gets brought back to, let's just say, a tournament, right? And they could figure that out easy because they just trace it back, and all of a sudden they talk to 10 people who bowl the tournament. All 10 of them are, you know, it's like, okay. Now, does the bowling center, they have to shut down, right? And then how long are they going to have to be shut down for? Like, there's so many like Mike, I just don't know why people just can't like chill out and just be like, you know what, like 2020 sucks. Let's just, like. But I understand another piece too.
I hate to say it because I want to bowl as much as anybody else, and I like to compete as much as anyone. Rob, I hit you up a lot of times when I bowl tournaments, so you know how often I'm out there and I bowl. So yeah, it sucks, but at the same time, you're right. There's no reason to rush. There
is though. Here's the other end of it, Mike. The other end of it is like, it's the people that like run the businesses, especially friends of mine who own pro shops.
Right.
Right. Like these people, if you run a.
Well, can I make a point though? I mean, I think Greg kind of said this as well. Like bowling can reopen. League bowling, amateur tournament bowling, to me, those are the two areas where we have a big problem going forward. Open bowling can come back. People can go and practice. Right. Pro shops can open and make appointments for people to come in and have their stuff drilled, et cetera. I mean, obviously, there's going to have to be different processes in place for that as well, I would imagine. But bowling can reopen. I just think that league bowling and competitive amateur bowling, they really face some unique issues in the sport. Professional bowling, that can be done. Those two particular areas, they face some problems.
One last point, and then we'll keep it moving here. I just like to say
my phrase, by the way. Can I say that? That was my phrase when we had the just the verbal podcast, and now that we went to video, you stole that phrase from me. So
I thought it was the podcast. I thought it was the podcast phrase. Like,
no, I'm officially taking that phrase back tonight. So leave it to me to tell us we're going to keep it moving with people. So go ahead.
You can have the phrase. I'll come up with my own phrase.
Thank you. Do so.
Bada bing, bada boom.
That was great. Go ahead. Continue on with your point.
I make it my business, Mike, when I go into a bowling center pre-COVID for the last 20 years, not to be around anybody when I'm practicing. So it'll be really easy for me, okay?
Yeah. When I'm practicing. Oh, I'll love this. I'll love this for practice. I'll have a pair with nobody around me. Beautiful.
Yep.
I'll offer to pay the bowling alley extra to do the pair with a pattern for me. I'll say, charge me $25 extra. That's fine. I'll pay you. I don't care. Give you some extra income, and I get the pair done for myself. I love it. But but that's a different ball game, Rob, right? That's only one aspect of bowling. And I hope that comes back. I do. I hope it comes back well. Again, there might have to be some adjustments. You might have to call and say, hey, do you have any lanes open for this type of practice? Who knows? But yeah, those two particular areas, I don't know, man. Going to be tough.
The days of me walking into a bowling center and there being 40 open lanes and 2 lanes with birthday parties and me getting pudding next to one of them.
They're over. They're over. They're over.
Be on lane 40 and don't come near me.
Bless up. Those days are over. That's right. I'm never going to have to worry about being next to an open bowler while I'm practicing again. Perfect. All right, man. Rob, we're going to keep it moving for the people as we do.
Bada bing, bada boom.
All right, so Rob, we mentioned a few episodes ago, might have been the last episode, that this JBT Facebook page had popped up, right? Like a JBT Bowlers from the Past Facebook page. And, pretty cool to see some of the stories and some of the pictures that are being put up there. And, our listeners here, Rob, obviously we know that not everybody is a former JBT bowler that listens to this show. Some people may not be all that familiar with what it is. But I guess suffice to say, Rob, that, it's a really high-level junior bowling traveling tournament organization, mainly based out of the East Coast. And Rob, when that Facebook page popped up, you and I had a discussion, and we said, yeah, we should definitely bring on the man behind the JBT. Yes, Rob?
Yeah. I mean, if you really think about it, and I was thinking about this like a few minutes ago, right before we jumped on, Mike, about how, like, if there was not a JBT, like this, we wouldn't have a podcast. I wouldn't probably even know you or Bill, right? Like, I mean, Bill went to college to Saginaw Valley because I met him through JBTs, and he bowled for Saginaw Valley for 3 years and became as good a bowler as he was a lot because of college. And I mean, there is a lot of ripple effect out there if you really want to try to wrap your mind around how much JBT has influenced not only us in our lives, but the East Coast bowling and now some of the West Coast too. So, I mean, it's a really big thing, at least in our lives, in the bowling world on top of it, Mike.
Rob, I think that your personality shines so bright, my friend, that we would have met each other no matter what. I don't think there's any way I could have walked into a bowling alley that you were in at some point in my life and not been like, who the fuck is that kid? I got to go talk to him. So, yeah, just to be clear. But, yeah, I agree with everything you said, and I'm sure in the interview we'll get into that a little bit too. So let's bring him in, Mr. Chuck Pezzano Jr. Chuck, how are you, man?
Real good. Thanks for having me on, guys. Nice to talk to you. It's been a while.
Yeah, absolutely, it has. Rob, you want to give Chuck an update as to what's going on with your life a little bit, so he's up to date on where you're at? He's still single, Chuck. That's the bottom line.
Chuck, I'm living in downtown Chicago. I work for a big freight broker, and I just lived a single bachelor life. Bowled definitely a lot after college, and bowl a lot of amateur till this day. Bowled some pro, but bowling has not been a top priority for me the last year or two. But I'm getting that itch back, so. Been had some success definitely bowling amateur and a little bit of, I wouldn't say success pro-wise, but definitely some amateur success. But yeah, still till this day, those JBTs though is the prime of my career, Chuck. So you didn't win this. Yeah, that was the best I've ever been. So.
So yeah,
you, Mike?
Yeah, I am a teacher in New Jersey. Been doing so, oh my God, it's crazy to say, but almost for 20 years now. And coached the high school bowling team for quite a while. I'm actually the GOAT of high school bowling coaching in New Jersey, if you didn't know that. I live like maybe 10 minutes from Carolier, which obviously has a lot of historical significance in bowling in general, but in JBT history as well. And, still bowling, still bowl local stuff, still compete here and there, did the coaching thing for a while. And, just, doing my thing, living life. Got 2 kids, married, 2 daughters. So eventually you might see me pop up at some JBTs in the future if you're still running them, maybe like, I'd say 8 or 9 years from now. You might see me pop up with one of my daughters. But, so doing well, doing good. And I whenever I run into people from the JBT tour, and I'm sure this is the case for you too, Chuck. I always like to hear when people are doing well.
Well, I'm glad to hear you guys are both doing well. My story is a lot more boring than yours. I am pretty much doing the same thing I've been doing for a while. I'm still running bowling tournaments on the weekend, and I'm having a great time doing it. And like I always tell everyone, I have more fun than anybody at the tournaments, with the possible exception of the 2 winners, the scratch and handicap division winner, and I have the 3rd most fun of anybody in the building.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. How's your family, Chuck? How's your daughter? I mean, I know Rob and I bowled a little bit when I think she started bowling JBTs. So everybody good? All is well?
Well, give me a little frame of reference. What year did you guys graduate high school? If you don't mind me asking. 98.
That was 99.
Okay, and my daughter graduated in 84, so you guys were before her time.
Well, not really. Your daughter started bowling handicap because I remember she was more like 3 to 4 years younger than me. And I'm 38, so she's got to be like 33 to 34 right now. That's kind of what I'm guessing based on.
Oh yeah, I'm the one who's off. I'm giving her a birth year.
Yeah, I was gonna say no.
Okay, sorry, that's a little of my senior moments coming in. Yeah, that's true. She graduated in 2002, so all right. So she was a couple of years behind you guys. She's married, living in Texas near Dallas. She's an attorney. Her husband's an attorney. They've got 3 kids, 5, 3, and 6 months old or so. So she's pretty busy. She hasn't bowled in a long time, probably since her first child was born. But I keep telling her somewhere down the road she's got to pick it up again.
Mm. True. Yeah. So congrats, man. You're a grandfather now. It's big things, Chuck.
Yeah, I feel a little older than I did before that.
Okay. All right. Young at heart, though, I'm sure. I'm sure being around all the young kids all the time has to keep you young at heart somewhat.
That's what I tell people. I look around at the tournaments and I consider them all to be in some way a little bit my kids. And when I was reading the little snippets the guys put on the Facebook page about their days with the JBT, I kept referring to them as the kids. And it's hard to do that when some of them are 40 and even 50 years old, but to me, I still think of them as the kids.
Yeah, very true. Very true. So, Chuck, I guess the first thing we want to ask you about in terms of, a background for our listeners or a history, so to speak, would be your own introduction to the sport of bowling. If people aren't aware, I would imagine many are, Rob, but if people are not aware, Chuck's dad is an absolute legend in the bowling community, Rob.
Oh yeah, absolutely. USBC Hall of Famer, amazing author, writer. Believe they even started the PBA regional circuit, Chuck. Now, I would imagine that's a lot of reason why you got into it bowling, or I guess I'd love to hear the background on how you got started into it.
Well, first of all, thank you for what you said about my dad, and it's all true. He was involved in, he's one of the charter members of the PBA, one of the 33 original bowlers, and one of the 6 or 7 original members of their Hall of Fame, and he did start the regional program, and after his bowling days were done, and even while he was a bowler, he was a writer and did that till the very end. Even with that background, though, it wasn't a case where he pushed any of us into bowling. He introduced us to bowling, but it wasn't a case where I was 3 years old on the lanes. I think the first time I bowled, I was probably 6 or 7, and we joined the league, and maybe when we were 8 or 9, and bowled our 3 games a week. Never pushed us into it, but I guess just what was ever in our blood attracted us to it. So all 4, myself and my 3 brothers, all became bowlers, varying degrees of success.
Okay, no surprise there. Your dad obviously during that time, and you kind of grew up in a time, I would imagine, where bowling was in its heyday. No,
bowling was great then. When I was a kid, that was really the beginning of when we would start seeing the bowling on TV. You always knew it. 3:30 on ABC. That's when the Pro Bowlers Tour came on, and it was always exciting because at 3:30 is when they introduced the 5 finalists. Because you never knew who was going to be on. There was no internet, and the newspapers didn't really cover it as well as we would have liked. So it was always very exciting to see if some of our favorite bowlers would be on TV. Gee, is Dick Weber on TV this week? Is Carmen Salvino on? Bob Strampy? All the great names of bowling history. And that was our Saturday. We bowled Saturday morning in our junior league, and next most important thing of the weekend was 3:30. Turn on ABC and let's watch the pros.
Things have changed a lot since then.
Yeah, it's quite a bit different. We've lost so many centers along the way, and that's, of course, had a big effect on our program. It's not the same as it was in our heyday of the 80s and 90s, but the kids who are still bowling still have the same attraction to it. They still love the competition, and they look forward to it as much as anybody did, and as much as you guys did back when you were bowlers.
Absolutely. So, yeah, let's go there a little bit and give us, you give us your own personal history in bowling, but take us through the history of the JBT and how this idea came about, or how this organization was.
The actual beginning of the Junior Bowlers Tour came when I had taken my brothers and some friends to a junior tournament. I was 18 at the time. I had just recently left junior bowling, and we went to a junior bowling tournament, and I watched and they bowled, and we didn't think it was run very well. And on the way home, we were talking about it, and they said, "Chuck, you should run a tournament. You can do better than that." And we laughed a little bit, and then we started talking, and I decided I can try to run one tournament. So in the summer of '75, I ran a bowling tournament, and it was somewhat successful. And 3-4 months later, I ran another one, and it went pretty well. And a couple months later, it went pretty well. And then things kind of got out of control, and we started running tournaments every month and then every couple weeks. And here we are, 3,500 tournaments later, and still going.
Wow. My goodness.
Yeah, that's amazing. So how long after you started it did it take the organization to get to the point where it was an almost every weekend thing?
Well, when we first started, it was just a handicap tournament. At the beginning, because there weren't enough what we considered scratch bowlers. A scratch bowler in those days was 170, 180. Those were really good bowlers in those days. So it wasn't until the very end of the first season that we tried running a couple of scratch events, and they went pretty well. And beginning with our second season, which was the 76-77 season, we ran a scratch and a handicap division. And it was 80-81 we started running tournaments in the New England area. 84-85 we added New York, Long Island mainly. And a couple of years later we added Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Delaware, and a little ways down the road we added Maryland. So as far as when it got to be an every week kind of thing, we were running 50 tournaments within 10 years, and within 15 years we were running between 100 and 120 tournaments a year. So between myself and my other directors, we were pretty busy on the weekends.
Wow, that's pretty incredible, Chuck. So do you have an idea of how much total scholarship money you've given out since you actually have started running? Is there like an estimate, or?
We have the number. It's going to this year. It was slightly over $3.2 million in scholarship money awarded.
Wow, I got some scholarship money.
Yes, no doubt. Is a title still worth $100?
Regular tournaments, first place is $200.
Oh, whoa, Rob!
Rob,
we bowled in the wrong era. I'm like,
today you're killing it, Rob. I'm ready to make a comeback. I'm gonna find a way to make a comeback.
I wish.
See, when we first started running tournaments and offering scholarship prizes, I was very fearful that it would change the way the kids and the parents looked at the tournaments. I didn't want it to become looked at as a money-making opportunity. I wanted it to be still the same fun tournament, and any scholarship money would be icing on the cake. So for many years, a lot of our scholarship money was all geared toward a couple of special tournaments at the end of the year. We had small prizes each week just to have a little carrot to dangle out there, but the big money tournaments were later in the year. We figured if it was going to get cutthroat, well, let's not have that happen too many times a year.
Are you now? One of my favorite parts of bowling was the scholar dollar, and I used to not understand how someone couldn't get into the Scholar Dollar. Like, come on, it's $1. So is that still a thing, the Scholar Dollar? Because that was always my favorite.
We still run the Scholar Dollar, which most bowlers would know as an eliminator. Inflation has gotten to the Scholar Dollar, and now the Scholar Dollar costs $3. So naturally, with the $3, it's higher prizes, and like we said, it's just an eliminator. Just be consistent, and you'll do well in that. And that's probably why you did pretty well.
It should now be called the $3 Scholar Dollar Holla. That should be the name of it now. Okay, so glad to hear that the Scholar Dollar is still around. And yeah, listen, I watched your interview with Parker Bone and Chris Forey. Obviously, we're not Parker and Chris, but we'll suffice for now. But I watched that interview that you did with them. It was awesome. It was very entertaining. I liked it. And you talked a little bit about what you just brought up in terms of when scholarship money first became a part of youth bowling, and how you had some concerns about that. I want to follow up on that a little bit and ask, how has it turned out, in your opinion? I mean, you just talked about the concerns that you had at the time when it was starting. But what about now? Look, I mean, it's been over 20, 25 years now, I would imagine. Do you think that you were right about the negative impacts it was going to have, or have things turned out differently?
Well, Chris had brought up something which I had never thought about. That was, why would you bring your friends to the tournaments if they're good bowlers if they could potentially beat you? Now, that's not something that I really thought about. Looking back at it now, after he said it, I can see where that may have been a problem. And again, I had never thought about it at the time. What I was just concerned about was, like I said, taking the fun out of it. Now, we held off on offering scholarship prizes as long as we could, but there were more and more tournaments showing up that were offering scholarship prizes. So to stay in the game, we had to also offer scholarship prizes. And we decided if anybody's going to offer scholarship prizes, someone has to be the best, so that might as well be us. We didn't offer the biggest prizes in the weekly tournaments, but we had a couple of real special tournaments at the end of the year. Now, over the years, that's grown tremendously. I remember our first year, the big ad on the entry blanket at the beginning of the year said, "Guaranteed this season, $5,000 in scholarship prizes." And now we run a tournament that offers $5,000 to the winner alone. So it's escalated, obviously, with inflation and the increased cost of college. We give them more opportunities than they used to have to bowl for a little bit more money. We've tried to keep everything in check as far as not getting out of hand. Don't want it to become anything less than a fun experience. Whether you bowl well or you don't have your best day, we still want you to have fun.
Yeah, and you know what, Rob, I'm not going to speak for you here, but I think you'll agree with me. To us, our generation, I don't really think it was ever about the money or the scholarship money or the prize. I mean, that was a decent secondary part to it, where maybe you could earn a little extra cash for books or, some expenses in school. But I don't think any of us were traveling to the tournaments or deciding who we would bring or not bring to the tournaments, based on winning scholarship money. Did you feel the same way, Rob?
Yeah, I didn't really, care about the scholarship money. And as I wanted to bring guys like Mike and Bill and Fagan, and I wanted to bowl against them. I was fearless at that age, and I wanted to bowl, guys that were competing with me every week. And it's amazing how you look back at it, Mike. We were all friends off the lanes. We stayed at each other's houses. We would travel all weekend together, and then we'd end up bowling each other for a title and then leaving in the same car and driving back. I'd imagine a lot of the Pro Tour people do the same kind of thing, and they're bowling for serious money. But it was never about it was always, it was just more bragging rights than it was anything.
Well,
yeah, go ahead, Chuck.
I think the kids still look at it the same way. My concern was always the parents in the background who were footing that bill for college. And we haven't had a problem with that. That was always my concern, that these people are looking at $50 or $100 or $200,000 in tuition costs down the road, and it's a lot of money to go to school, and that's their problem to pay for it. It's usually not the kids' problem. The kids were there to have fun, which is what I wanted, but I also want the parents to enjoy their time there too. I always had these nightmares that someday we'd have a brawl break out in the back when a couple of the fathers are arguing over my kid's better than your kid and he should have won, that kind of thing. But it never really became Little League baseball, which is good.
Man, you're Chuck, you're going right into our sweet spot here, homie. So actually, one of the questions we have written down here for you is, have you ever had to break up a fight between parents at a JVT event?
A fight between parents. Let me think about that for a minute. I have had occasion where I've had to ask parents to leave the center. I had one parent, and this was probably around the time you were bowling. You guys were bowling, and you probably know who this is.
Oh, my God.
His own little side action on the side.
I love it. Let's go.
And he was dumb enough to go up to Robin Sizowitz. Now, his father helped me at the tournaments, and he was dumb enough to go up to my daughter and ask them if they wanted in on the action. Now, at this time, this wasn't scholarship money. He was trying to run pots for cash, which is 100% against the rules. And I'm sure he was looking to take a cut for himself, too, because he was just that kind of a guy. And I went up to him, and I said, "You've got to leave." And he was such a bewildered look on his face. Well, how am I going to get the scores? As if I cared.
Oh, my goodness. I could probably take one guess.
I'm sure you know exactly who it is.
I know exactly who it is, Mike. Oh, that just made me die. I'm crying here, Chuck, because I remember that now, actually. I remember hearing about it. I don't know if I was there or not. God knows I probably was in all the brackets, Mike. Hopefully I got a refund.
We had another story for you, and this is really terribly sad. We had a parent. We were watching a kid, and his scorecard was wrong. And we watched the kid, and whenever we suspect someone might be writing a score down wrong, and it doesn't happen much, maybe every couple of years or so, someone will think they can put one over. They don't realize that every pair of eyes in the bowling center is watching every other bowler. But the kid's score was wrong. And so we watched him for a couple of games, and we realized the kid wasn't filling out his own scorecard. It was the father who was filling out the scorecard. And the kid had no knowledge that his father was cheating. And it was a very difficult situation for us. We really didn't want to punish the kid because the kid was just out there bowling. The father was holding on to the scorecard, writing down whatever number he felt like writing down. And that father was asked to leave permanently.
Mike, that sounds like a Sean Wyant's dad's type story.
No.
No, but listen, not to put, not to throw names out there, but listen, I mean, there was some epic arguing between parents and bowlers at the time that we bowled, Rob. I mean, Chuck, there had to be some times where you've had to, kind of either look at parents and their interactions with their kids and kind of raise your eyebrows, or even say, hey, you got to bring it down a notch, because I remember some really crazy parents when we bowled.
Well, you asked me if I had to break up fights between parents. There were lots of fights between parents and kids. That's a whole different thing. That's a much different question.
Can we get a story? Can we get a parent-kid story?
Oh, there's plenty of them. I'll never forget one in particular. And again, I don't know if you might have been at the tournament, but he's probably around your age. A fellow used to come bowling, and his mother would come, and they would just get along. And his mother was very nice, and she was very calm, but the son just had this habit of, and whenever he bowled bad, it was his mother's fault. And he'd yell at her as if she threw the ball. And sometimes the language got to the point where he was looking to get disqualified. And the mother just sat there and took it. And I'll never forget watching him walk from lane to lane carrying a ball while his mother is dragging 2 triple ball bags, and he's saying, hurry up, hurry up.
Chuck, I'm not going to give names, but were there 2 brothers that bowled that this story has? Because
no, actually, this was not.
Okay, you know what? I know. I'm not going to name names either, but after this interview's over, I'm going to ask him if this is right. But I think I know who he's talking about because at the Scoremore Open, the first time I ever bowled the Scoremore Open, I was probably about 12 years old. My dad got a flyer for it. God bless him. God rest his soul. He wanted to take me because it looked like a really good tournament. I had 1 bowling ball at the time, which was a urethane blue hammer. It was conventionally drilled. I had no idea what I was in for, what I was getting into. Ended up that I found out about JBTs by going to that tournament at Carolier, but I was on a pair next to this person, I believe, who Chuck's referring to, and I must have cut him off a bunch. And my dad had watched him berate his mom the entire day. I mean, it was bitch up and down, this and that. It was terrible. And my dad even called me in the back and said, "You see this kid right here? He's like, you ever talk to me or your mother like that, I will knock your teeth out." I mean, he was like adamant about it. So I must have walked up on the kid a bunch, and he took the bowling ball, and as I was going up to start my approach, he kind of like fake motioned like he was going to throw the bowling ball at me. Okay?
Good.
And and listen, you guys knew my dad. My dad was not going to be having that shit. So he went right down to the kid, told him, "Hey, don't ever let me see you do something like that again to anybody around here, let alone my kid." And this guy got mouthy with my dad. My dad told him, "Listen, I'm not your mom. You talk to me that way, I'll knock your teeth down your throat." So I think I remember exactly who you're talking about. That person was infamous for really giving it to their mom in a crazy way. So yeah, listen, these are a lot of the things that I remember about the JBTs. Some of the crazier people, the crazier personalities.
Oh yeah, we had a few of those.
Oh man, we had a lot.
And then, it went the other way too. Then it was the parents who lived and died on every ball their child threw, twisting themselves up in a knot in the back. There were a few times, and there still are, a few parents that I have to remind, this is supposed to be fun. Just relax. I'll never forget my daughter when she just started bowling. She must have been 10 or 11. And on the way home, she says to me, "Dad, are you mad at me?" And I said, "No, why? Did you do something?" She said, "Well, I bowled bad." I said, "So why would I be mad at you?" She said, "Well, lots of the other parents get mad when their kids bowl bad." And that was just very, very sad to see. And it prevented me from ever becoming one of those kind of parents. Not that I thought I would anyway, but just the way she said that and she observed it. And, we do try to keep an eye on that and calm people down if necessary. It's funny, changing subjects real quick. You mentioned Sean Wyant and his dad, one of my favorite stories of all time.
Oh, my God. Tell me, please.
We're at Burke's Lanes, and Sean was 10 at the time. And he goes up in the 10th frame, and he's got the first 9 strikes. So I don't know if he would have been the youngest kid to ever bowl a 300 at the time, but it would have been close. and he goes up in the 10th frame, and he throws the 3 strikes for 300, and his father sitting in the back just said one word, because I was watching the father, waiting to see the reaction. So Sean throws that 12th strike at the age of 10, and his father says, "Finally."
It's so good.
Chuck, I got
his father's a great guy, and I even gave him a hard time about that afterwards. I said, "You realize he's only 10, don't you?" "Yeah, but he's been bowling a long time."
Yeah.
So I got a great story that's complete opposite of that, and I still get made fun of till this day about it from people that were there. My second 300 was at Rose Bowl, and I was bowling, and my dad was there, and it was the first game of the tournament. I bowled 300, and the second game I had the front 8. Now this is the most I'm really nervous, whatever. My dad was in a settee area and fell asleep while I was bowling. So literally, somebody, I think it was actually Dave Bukowski, went over to my father and woke him up and is like, "Your son has the front 20." And he was completely sleeping on. My dad would get up early and then drive us down from Brooklyn, all this traffic, and by the time we got there and he got directions and all whatnot, he was already asleep, and my mom was at a shopping mall somewhere. So anyway, I just figured that would be a funny story because I ended up.
So anybody who was watching this thought you were just boring him to death.
I know, it was just too many strikes. So yeah, I had the complete opposite effect on my dad while I was bowling.
Yeah, true. Absolutely. You definitely saw the full range of emotions in terms of parents at those events. It was like I said, one of the more interesting things to me were the characters that you would encounter there. Chuck, we want to keep the subject matter somewhat comical and light here. So the next thing we wanted to ask you was about fry jobs, man. I mean, there's a lot of JBT fry jobs. There's a lot of kids that when I think about my own time in JBTs, right, Rob? People just come to mind as being fry. I'm probably that person for a lot of people. When a lot of people that bowled with us, they probably "Oh man, Weiner, he was a nut job." But you have those people in your head. Chuck, to you, you've been doing it so long. Anybody that really sticks out to you is classic fry outs?
There were a lot of people who had that one really bad moment.
He's talking about me, Mike.
Well, no, we're not gonna talk about either one of you guys. I'll bring up one because I'm sure he'll readily admit to it. One was Greg Ostrander. We were bowling at Garden Palace in Clifton. A little bowling center, a little 16-lane place, and he's in the step ladder, and I don't know if he needed a strike or needed a double to win the match and go on to the next match, and he didn't get it, and he yelled just one word, but it was really loud and really wrong, and he kind of looked at me, and he just walked out of the building, knew there was no need to even finish the game. And his poor father and grandfather standing there, they just kind of shook their head up and down yeah, move on to the next game. Let us know what his punishment is. Let me know how long he's going to be suspended. And that same type of thing happened with a few other bowlers, but that one was a real bad timing situation for Greg. He was fighting for Bowler of the Year. We gave him a one tournament vacation, and the tournament he missed was Carolier, which was his home house, and it probably cost him Bowler of the Year. So one bad word at the wrong time. Next time you see him, ask him about that. I'm pretty sure he'll remember it.
You see, that's the trick, Mike, where you got to go somewhere where Chuck can't hear you. See, that was my trick. You sneak into the bar, you sneak into the bathroom, and then you leave, and then you act like nothing happened. So, but sometimes it just happens. There was a story in a Pennsylvania conference tournament where someone threw a shoe down a lane. I remember when they left the 10-pin. I don't know if you were running that tournament though, Chuck.
Well, I know it happened once in New Jersey.
Maybe it was Jersey then.
I believe it was Eagle Rock. That may have happened in Pennsylvania, a tournament I was not running, but another bowler who's proudly, I shouldn't say proudly, but will remember it and will admit to it, Mike Zangi. I don't remember the exact situation that caused it, but yeah, his shoe went down lane 32. I think it was the 8th game, and he came in pretty sheepishly, Chuck, I need to get my shoe.
Yeah, never good. Yeah, I used to love those stories, especially the throwing the shoe at the 10-pin. That was always one of my favorites.
This was brought up on the Facebook page. Do you guys know Jordan Nasberg?
No,
yeah.
he I don't personally, but
I do. I know him from back in the day, but I'm pretty sure he was older.
Right, you wouldn't have bowled with him, but you may know him as a bowling coach.
Right.
And we had talked a little bit on the Facebook about the time leaving the tournament. He backed into my car, and I don't know how many kids came running in. It was like a race, like a 100-yard dash. 10 or 12 kids came running. No one could wait to tell me what Jordan had done. And Jordan was right behind trying to negotiate a settlement that I don't call the insurance company. And his entry fee was $10 or $20 a week higher for a while. We had a payment plan we arranged, but I remember that charge of kids couldn't wait to come in and tell me what happened.
Amazing, yeah. All kinds of good stories. One, you talk about bowlers, having to sit some time out or, getting disqualified, et cetera. I remember one event, I believe it was in Maryland, and Paluzik at the time worked in the pro shop, so he had a little bit of bowling ball knowledge, and this big lefty named Brian Cranberry was really whacking them that day. I think he may have been leading the tournament, and Joe went down and took a look at the ball that the kid was using and noticed something funky about the drilling. And of course, Joe being Joe, he had to come to you and say something. So we all marched down to the pro shop. And the thing I remember the most is that Joe was scared shitless that this kid was going to kick his ass after he got kicked out of the tournament. That's
probably rightfully so.
Oh yeah, he was a big boy, no doubt. And Joe was one of the guys who rolled with me. So therefore, I felt like, man, am I really going to have to fight with this kid because he's going to start with one of my guys who's here with me? So just again, crazy stories, things that happen. These people you remember, names you remember. Definitely interesting to delve into it and talk about it a little bit and bring up some of these stories. Really excellent bowling stories over the years for the Junior Bowlers Tour in general.
Now, what we did at one point to try to curb some of the over-enthusiastic bowlers, we didn't want to get in a situation where we started disqualifying everybody right and left. If you kicked the ball return, or if you said a bad word. So we came up with the invention that we would give you a 10-pin penalty. We tried that for a little while. So we would just, if you kicked the ball return, we wouldn't throw you out of the tournament. Your first warning would be a 10-pin penalty. Now, somewhere down the road later in that tournament, that 10 pins could come in pretty handy. And Chris mentioned it on Saturday. He had that happen to him. He's fighting in the final game to get to the stepladder, and I don't know exactly what he did, but the assistant director, his father, Paul Forey, went over to him and gave him a 10-pin penalty, and it cost him the finals.
Chuck, if you had that rule while we were bowling, and I was like, minus 150 or something, and I was Mike, I would be just dropping F-bombs left and right, like just taking the penalty. Like,
Well, we realized 10 pin wasn't enough, so later on we came up with a new rule because the USBC told us you can't do that. That's affecting the kid's average. Well, they didn't understand that. No, it wasn't. But rather than try to explain that to them, we came up with our version of the hockey penalty box. If you did a objectionable offense, you didn't bowl the 10th frame of that game.
Mm.
So depending when you did it, if you're on a double and a double going into the 10th frame, you've got the 8th and 9th frame strikes, and now your penalty comes up. You get a double gutter in the 10th. It was a pretty big penalty.
Yeah.
We had one kid once, and again, this was in the stepladder finals. He threw the first 4 strikes, and on the 5th ball, he left a big split and stamped on the foul line. So at that point, I had to go over to him, and I said, well, intentional foul, you get a 0 plus no further deliveries in the frame. So that's a double 0 in the 5th frame. And for your unsportsmanlike conduct, you get a double 0 in the 10th frame.
Mm.
So he threw 8 strikes that game, bowled 180 with 2 double gutters.
Mike, I'd be proud of that. I'd be telling everybody about that.
True, absolutely.
Mike, we have to ask him. So Chuck, you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and ask you.
Okay.
We've had some former JBT bowlers here that are now successful pros on our show. We've been doing this for a while. Guys like Matt O'Grady, Bill O'Neill, Mike Fagan. They're just kind of, the list goes on. And we always, when we ask them, and we used to ask these questions at the beginning of our show, on who they thought the greatest junior bowler of JBT was, like who the GOAT was of JBTs. And obviously it depended on what era. Like if I bowled, I could have an opinion. Mike would have another opinion around our age, and then O'Grady would be earlier. Your opinion, and all your years that you were running JBTs, who is the greatest JBT bowler of all time? If you were to just throw that out there.
Well, I'm going to start by saying probably what you already realized, that the kids who bowled in the 70s and are different than the kids who bowled in the 80s and the kids who bowled in 2015. So it's impossible to compare numbers. Back at the beginning, our first year, 181 was high average. One of the guys posted on the Facebook page that the first year he bowled 1070 for 5. He had the high series for the year, and he says, I realized that wouldn't make a cut nowadays. So numbers are meaningless, and every group, their era they think was the toughest. Now, tell me who you bowled with. Who were your contemporaries?
Mike, who did we bowl always
so
again?
Like, I guess on the older end of our contemporaries, meaning like guys that were older when we first came in, you'd be talking about your Walter Hastings, your Lee Wenzels, your Lou Franzetti group, Doyle Irons group right there. And then amongst us, the guys that I felt like bowled with us at the same time, you'd be talking me, Rob, Paluzik, Bill, Ryan Snyder, Tommy Hay, Don Pyle, Scott Thornton, definitely, Matt Burley, another name that I would definitely throw out there. So,
okay, now just comparing those two sets of bowlers, how can you pick one group or a bowler out of one group as opposed to a bowler out of another group? You were right on the cusp. I remember the time you were talking about. I guess it was right about when you guys were starting. We lost a lot of scratch bowlers. We had a big graduation year. And I remember saying to my daughter, the scratch division is going to suck next year. We don't have any good bowlers. And all of a sudden, here comes Bill O'Neill and Tommy Haig and Ryan Snyder and and you guys, and turned out to be some pretty good bowlers in that group. So every year, when I think, well, they're not going to be able to measure up to the last group, somehow they do. It's impossible. I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't know enough about bowling from the technical standpoint to say who the best bowler was. I can tell you who had the best scores on a given day, but if I look at two bowlers, I'm not the one who's going to be able to say I don't like his footwork or I don't like his arm swing. That's not my department. So I'm really going to dodge your question because I don't have an answer.
Well, it's fair. I mean, we all know like that you don't want to say me to give me a big head and all, but I mean, but in all seriousness, Chuck, it's a really tough question because of how many years you've been doing it, and you're right, and it's definitely a whole different era of bowling, just in 10 years, right? Like
along those same lines, you guys know Mark Feiner, and he ran the tournaments as long as anybody. Years ago, I gave Mark a sheet with all kinds of stats for the bowlers. I said, Mark, I'm thinking about trying to set up a JBT Hall of Fame. And if I was to start with the top 10 bowlers of all time, give me your list of 10 bowlers. And I made a list of 10 bowlers, and he made a list of 10 bowlers, and we matched on 2 of them.
Wow.
So...
what's the odds of
Who were those
now?
two? Who were those two?
Obviously, you were the 2.
Yeah.
No, bullshit. No, come on. We really want to know who the 2 were. Come on.
I really don't remember, to be honest with you.
Mike, it was definitely me, 100%. So we're just gonna go and that's awesome.
So
JBT Hall of Fame. I like it.
Yeah, that would be dope. Who is the all-time title winner in the scratch division?
Well, David Knight's got the most titles. He's got 48 titles.
Okay.
I believe 10 of those were in the handicap division. So if you don't want to count those, next comes Mike Wadzinski with 42. And I don't know if he had any handicap titles or not. He may have had 1 or 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Mike may be the all-time winner in most scratch titles.
Gotcha. All right. Interesting. Still giving out the same plaques. Rob, how coveted were those plaques back in the day? You would kill to get your hands on one of those, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I still have them.
So do I. They're in my parents' in my mom's basement, no doubt.
Yeah.
It was nice to see some of the people posted some pictures of plaques and scoreboards still on the wall and old JBT newses. That was nice to see.
Yeah, I have some. I haven't busted them out yet on the page, but I have a lot of them, believe it or not. So I'm going to get to it eventually, but I'm looking forward to posting those. And obviously most of the JBT news that I have are the ones that I've won, so I don't want to throw all these JBT newses out with me winning on all of them, But I also have an old Scoremore brochure too, Mike. Like that'll be a good one too.
Another classic, yeah, for sure. Chuck, what's the most highest dollar amount that a single player has won in a JBT career?
That's probably Mike Wadzinski. I believe he won about $42,000.
Mike.
Wow.
Now that was over the course of a career, and naturally as he got older and better, it was mostly the bigger money scratch tournaments. He had more of an opportunity to win a couple thousand at a time, but those $100 and $50 scholarships add up. Don't think about them, and then all of a sudden at the end of the year, maybe you've got $1,000. And then as you get better and better, now you're climbing to the top of the totem pole, and now you hit a couple of big tournaments, and you have a real good year. So I believe, I think it was around 42,000 Mike had, and used it all for scholarship. Used it all for school. Went to St. John's, I believe is where he graduated from, and he chose not to bowl collegiately. He said, St. John's isn't offering me any scholarship money to bowl for them. I'll go bowl the Junior Bowlers Tour, and I'll make some scholarship money.
Okay. Yeah, there's also there seemed to be a transition a little bit. I feel like right after our group left, where in the late '90s, basically when you turned 18 and you graduated high school, the expectation was that you were going to go adult and you were going to start bowling for money. And I feel like right after that, almost that paradigm kind of shifted to where some of the younger kids that we came up with, Rob, that were younger than us, they ended up staying several years after graduating high school and even after they were 18. Whereas I really felt like if you didn't go money adult when you turned 18 in our group, Rob, you were probably going to catch heat for that.
Yeah, do you know who started the era of 25-year-old JVT bowler was Robert Rowe III, and then Scott Thornton followed, and then how was Dave Bukowski allowed to bowl till he was like 28? I'm still wondering that, Mike.
Yeah, true.
Well, I do see sometimes when the guys will post that, oh, I won the tournament this week, and then his friends will get on his back. Oh, you're still bowling against the kids. These guys are still in college. It's scholarship money in their case is as good as cash to them.
Yeah, I really say that in regret. I mean, honestly, I think it would have been a much better decision for all of us to retain our junior bowling status and not go adult. In fact, I think that for many of us that probably hurt our careers in a way because there were less things that we could bowl. You had to have more money to bowl one event, and it was more costly, and the travel was often longer. And, it was a lot tougher than going to a junior tournament and getting that experience of trying to win.
And Chuck, I would think it was not as much fun. When you're bowling the adult tournaments, it's for real. It's for money. People are not as friendly, especially if you're the young kid. They don't want the young 18-year-old coming and taking their money. That's very offensive to the 35-year-old guy who's bowling these tournaments all the time.
Yeah, and I understand that. We definitely got a little bit of that, I would say. So you didn't want to nail down a best JVT bowler of all time. So let me ask you this. And I had this question, worded out a certain way. Were there any bowlers while you've been doing the JVT a long time? Can you name some guys who, even as junior bowlers, when you watch them compete and you watch them bowl, is there anybody that sticks out where even as a junior bowler you thought to yourself, wow, this person probably has what it takes to really become something in the sport?
Well, before I tell you what I had to say, I got to give Mark Feiner credit. He brought a kid to a tournament once and said, and I watched him bowl, and he averaged about 165. And I'm thinking, okay, Mark, whatever you say. And he got a little bit better and a little bit better, and then turned out to be Anthony Pepe. So Mark spotted that when he was a 160 bowler. I don't have that kind of talent to spot it when they're that young. What I more judge my opinion on these young bowlers is who can keep their cool, because nowadays they can all throw strikes, and they all know more about their equipment than I ever thought of when I was a kid. So it's not an issue of physical ability or knowing what to do on the lanes. It's how you respond when things don't go your way. So that's more what I base it on when I see the young guys coming up. And there's been a few when I've had to talk to them, say, you got a shot to be something good if you get your head back on straight.
Okay, yeah, obviously we all know the importance of the mental aspect of things. You know, we were all really, really good at throwing the bowling ball at one time or another, but you know, the mental aspect definitely separating, you know, some of the guys that had some success versus a lot of success, I would say. You kind of alluded there and a couple times throughout this interview to some of the changes that have taken place in the game over time, you know, and you talked about lower scores back in the 70s and 80s, early 90s when things were first rolling. You know, Rob, I guess when we bowled, scores were definitely higher, I would say. You know, as we talked about, 10-year-old shooting 300, you know, clearly that wasn't all based on the skill. But what are your thoughts, Chuck, on the changes that have occurred in bowling over the time that you've been doing this? I mean, when I coached high school, by the time I was done, I almost felt like it was a joke because they were so easy and the scores were so out of control, and it really didn't take all that much skill to be a high average player, so to speak, if you got the right ball and did the right thing. So, yeah, I just wanted to hear your thoughts on those changes that have occurred and what you think about them.
Well, I think you hit on it right there when you said the right ball. I don't know if they've come up with too many conditions that the ball manufacturers haven't come up with a ball to overcome. I don't know if let me see if I can phrase this right. I don't know if they're attacking the scoring issue the right way. I think, and it's not me that said it for the first time, but people much wiser than me have said we need heavier pins. We need lower gutters. That's the difference. The balls seem to always overcome whatever conditions. They've got all these animal patterns and city patterns, and the kids pull out their telephone and they look it up, and it tells them where to throw the ball and what ball to throw. So I don't know that that's something that the scoring will be stopped with the way they're handling it. Now, if you make the pins a little bit heavier or a lot heavier, and make the gutters a little bit lower, and you're not getting pins bouncing out of the gutters all the time, messengers disappear, and the old-fashioned 5-7 returns and the 8-10 returns. But you don't see that now.
Yeah,
Mike, that's a good ounce. That is a great ounce.
It is. I mean, listen, Rob, we brought a lot of high-level bowlers onto this show and asked them similar questions, and I have to say that's quite a unique answer, you know, and something that hasn't really been discussed. So, all right, Chuck, you know, you've been awesome. We've taken way more time than we thought we would, so we apologize for that. We hope we're not.
Oh, this is great. I could go on forever talking about these things.
Okay, perfect. We could too, but we don't want to keep you all night. But I do have one more important question that's right to my heart. You know, I am Big Mike. You know, people know the way I roll around here. What bowling center in the history of the JBT Tour do you feel has the best snack bar food?
All right. When's the last time either one of you saw me eating at a tournament?
Wow.
Yeah, not very often. But I mean, I figured you got to sample the fare here and there. No.
Nope.
That is unbelievable.
Nope. I get by with a candy bar.
You know, Mike, my mind is blown right now because I've never seen Chuck eating food at the tournament.
Give me another question. I'm sorry I ruined your important question. Give me another the one I can answer.
Well, I want to know then, like, what's Chuck's routine for the JBT? Because if you don't eat during the tournament, you got to eat at some point. I mean, do you stop for breakfast on the way there? Are you grabbing a nice dinner on the way home? Like, what's your routine?
I'll tell you. When once I leave my house, I'm in tournament mode, and that's really all I can really think of. I don't really, even if I had time, don't really worry about having something to eat or you're running to the men's room. You know, there's always something to do, and I'm having too much is going on. So as far as Chuck's mode is, he leaves the house, and when I get home, I'll say, "Oh, I didn't eat today. It's 10 o'clock. Maybe I should have something to eat."
Rob, the man is a tournament running machine.
I know he goes in the serial killer mode. Yep.
That's all I can say, man. Chuck, and anybody that you want to give a shout out to, man? Any companies that are helping you out at this point? Anybody you want to shout from the show?
Well, Chris Forey and Buddy's Pro Shop has always been a great supporter of us. He sponsors a tournament at the end of the year, which we're hopeful we can run this year. It's usually in August. Who knows what's going to happen with that? But Chris has just followed in his father's footsteps on helping young bowlers. Always have to thank my many assistant tournament directors. Always at the top of the list is Ken Shalom, and you guys know Ken. We announced that the tournament this year, Ken was at his 1,000th JBT tournament. So he was.
Wow.
He's always been my right-hand man along the way. I've had so many other people help out. Frank Wodzinski and his wife, and Steve Sizowitz, all the assistant directors. I don't want to start naming people because I'm going to start forgetting people also. But Frank and Steve were two of the people I forgot when I spoke to Chris. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned them.
Okay.
As far as anyone else to thank, it's just what you would expect. The bowling centers for hosting us, the kids for coming to the tournaments, and of course the parents for taking the time to bring the kids to the tournaments. Going to these tournaments, they're giving up one or both days of their weekend. They work all day, 5 days a week, and then they spend an entire Saturday or entire Sunday with their kids in the bowling centers. I don't think the kids realize it. They will 15 or 20 years from now, what a sacrifice it was. You mentioned, Rob, about your father falling asleep. That's a perfect example of the kind of dedication that they find a way to do what they can for their kids. And,
well, you know, the funny part, Chuck, about that is my exit to get on the highway was always next to a golf course. And when we would drive to JBTs and my dad would drive, it was like clockwork, almost tradition, that my dad would look at the golf course, then look at me and say, I could have been playing golf. And then he would drive onto the highway. And it always made me laugh till this day. And whenever I see him till this day, I always say when we drive by a golf course, I look at him and say, Dad, you could have been playing. So it's just kind of a funny story, you know.
Well, Chuck, again, we want to thank you for the time, man. It was nice catching up. We enjoyed the old JBT stories and definitely enjoyed catching up. Rob, you know, this is Sweep the Rack, man. People know how we do things around here. We got pull in the bowling community, okay? And we know the heavy hitters listen to this podcast. So, Rob, we're going to put it out there. Chuck Pezzano Jr. for the Hall of Fame, man. Let's go.
Yes, sir. I kind of feel like it definitely, hey, if you're listening, USBC, you know, let's start talking. Chuck has been such a inspiration and such a what is the word I'm looking for, Mike? He's been such a innovator of junior bowling.
Yeah, well, really, I mean, he's a guy who has helped build the grassroots movement of junior bowling in the Northeast section of the country, and that's saying a lot because the Northeast section of the country is a huge bowling area, and it's produced a lot of bowling talent over the years, even up to the current day. And yeah, I really truly believe that without the Junior Bowlers Tour and without Chuck's efforts there, you wouldn't see so much success from this section of the country, and you wouldn't see bowling still be as strong in this section of the country if it weren't for his efforts. So I say that with all seriousness, and you know, I hope, Rob, we're working behind the scenes a little bit, but I hope in all seriousness that we're able to get that done. So Chuck, again,
well,
thanks
thank you
for
very
everything,
much.
man.
I appreciate the kind words.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, you provided us with an outlet at a time in our lives where, all of us, the older people, the younger people, where, we were able to go out and create a lot of memories, build a fan base around something, or build a friend base, sorry, around something that we enjoyed and all had a shared passion for. And let's be honest, like, bowling was nerdy, right? I mean, I was not a nerd. I was far from a nerd, to be clear.
Yeah,
but
you were the
bowling was very nerdy, and there were a lot of nerds who participated in bowling, or nerdy kids. And, it was cool to be able to be around people who enjoyed the same thing that you did. And I really, truly believe that is a huge factor in why the Junior Bowlers Tour, even to this day, continues to be, a premier organization in junior bowling. So kudos to you, man. We enjoyed all those times and memories, et cetera, as you can see from the Facebook page too. And, listen, if you're a listener and you live in the Northeast section of the country, look it up. Chuck, where can they find information? Just Google Junior Bowlers Tour or
jbtbowling.com, and that'll get you to our website.
Okay.
And unfortunately, we have an unwanted timeout right now, but we hope to be back in action soon.
Okay, yeah. So if you're from the Northeast section of the country, and you have a child, or perhaps you're a kid listening to this, and you want to compete in these events, look them up, check them out. It's the best competition you can find around. It's been that way for a while. Chuck, take it easy, man. Safe travels, and good luck continuing to do your thing out there.
Thank you. Nice talking to both of you guys, and you be well.
Thanks, Chuck.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
All right, so Rob, good to catch up with somebody who, for many weekends in our youth, we spent a lot of time around.
Yeah, Mike, and I just want to follow up on a point that you said, because that really kind of hit home for me, really, really did, in the fact where we build a friend base. And when I was going through high school, I went to a New York City public school, Mike, and I went to high school literally like 2 to 3 hour days. It was overcrowded. There was a lot of gangs. It wasn't the greatest spot for me to be social and make friends and whatnot. My social crew that I had was through JBTs on the weekend. And you talk about being nerdy and whatnot. To think about all the high school weekends we used to spend just bowling, right? And then going out to eat, and then going to each other's houses and having 15 people sleeping over, whatever. And you look back at it, it really was the best time of your life. On top of that, we didn't drink, right? We didn't do drugs. We weren't into really anything bad, right? All of our time and efforts were into bowling, right? And that's what we did, and that we wanted to win, and we were competing, and a lot of us wanted to do it for a living. So yeah, that really hit home to think really, Chuck, I mean, how many people like myself kept me away from a lot of the bad things that I could have been into if I wasn't going to bowl JBTs on the weekends? Is that fair?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I'll be honest. For me, it was a little bit different, just because I kind of ran with a couple different social circles as a kid, where I had my bowling friends, which was Bill and Joe and you guys and JBTs. But I had another set of friends at home, in Philly, where I grew up. And yeah, I mean, listen, we would get into a lot of stuff we probably shouldn't be getting into at the age that we were at. But yeah, I will say that a lot of my weekends that were spent bowling or bowling JBTs, traveling around, yeah, it definitely kept me on the straight and narrow, kept me out of trouble. That group of kids that I hung out with through the JBTs, meaning you guys, were all, good kids, never really into any trouble, like you said. So yeah, I totally agree with your sentiment there about the tournaments and the friendships that are built there. And I think it's important to be around people that have the same passion that you do, or the same interest in things that you do, because it shows you that, hey, there's a whole community for you out here. And back then, Rob, today it's easy to find that because of the internet. right?
Right.
It doesn't matter what you're into. I mean, you could find a group on the internet to associate with and make you feel like, hey, there's a group here for me. But at the time that we were doing this, mid 90s, yeah, the internet was there, but it certainly wasn't there like it is today. And yeah, you could kind of feel like a little bit alone in the world, I guess you could say, in certain instances during that time. Where once you discovered the JVT, you saw a bunch of kids who took bowling just as seriously as you did and loved it as much as you did. So, yeah, great to catch up. Great interview. Some good stories there. Definitely a couple things to laugh at. Love recounting some of the parent stories, etc. That was some good stuff. Definitely some things we didn't get to ask about there that I would have liked to ask about because we don't want to keep people here all night. But yeah, great interview, and I'm glad we got the chance to catch up with Chuck there.
Yeah, definitely. And one last point is it was more of the fact where like I also didn't want to get grounded. My brother Dave, he used to get grounded every other like JBT, and that's how my parents used to ground us. So we did something bad during the week. Oh, no JBT for you. And it was like, oh my God, we can't go to JBT, and used to beg. There was so many times when I used to wake up in the morning of a JBT that I was grounded for. I used to like be in the kitchen, and my dad used to be eating breakfast, and I would be begging him to go because and it was like, and I remember how bad of a feeling it was, like not being able to bowl when all your friends were going to be there and you're supposed to stay over or whatnot, whatever. But man, just a great part of your childhood. So I recommend it if anybody's listening, like Mike said out there. If you guys are kids, if you're parents, if you have kids and you really want them to it's not just bowling, Mike. It's just them being a part of something and finding a common ground and meeting friends that they'll have for the rest of their lives, honestly. And I could consider Chuck a co-founder of Sweep the Rack podcast, honestly, because there's a lot of JBT is really how this podcast started, honestly, just from me and you knowing each other through it, and a lot of our origins are through JBT, and a lot of our connections are through JBT.
Yeah, and honestly, if you want to hear a little bit more of the history side of things, we try and keep things somewhat light around here, but the interview that we referenced a couple times that Chuck did with Chris Forey and Parker Bone, I believe it's still up on Facebook, so you guys can check that out if you want, and get a little bit deeper idea of the history there. They went a little bit more down that road than we did, whereas we, like I said, we kind of like to keep things light and talk about some of the off-kilter topics that Rob and I can conjure up to talk about. So yeah, definitely check that out too if you haven't yet and you want to hear a little bit more of the history side. All right, Rob, you know how we do. We're going to keep it moving for the people here.
We do, right. I don't know. This will probably air after that actually is live.
Sure.
They put it up on their Facebook too. So we're going to be going on the Inside Bowling podcast tomorrow to kind of give a review of the PBA League draft tonight.
Oh, I'm coming with the fire, Mike, on the first pick. You know me. They're not going to be happy with me because I'm going to be like giving a whole bunch of shit out.
Well, me either, because, as we discussed earlier, I just think that, a little bit of this stuff is somewhat overhyped. I want to hear more about, individual competition resuming, but we talked about it already. We'll talk about it with Mike Flanagan and Matt Faber tomorrow. We'll chop it up with them a little bit. Rob, as we always say, hit us up. You see, bottom of the screen, at Sweep the Rack on all social media. Email sweeptherack@gmail.com if you want to get at us. Hit us up. We love the emails. We always try and get back. We always try and respond. The new logo, Rob, people, let us know what you think about the new logo. Okay? We were happy to debut that tonight. So, Rob, that's all I got.
Cool. Well, yeah, Mike, been a great.
I'm going to go watch The Last Dance in real time like 99% of the rest of the population.
Yeah, I got to get on episode 6. So, hey.
You're only 3 weeks behind.
I
20 years on the wire.
I play by my own rules, Mike.
You watched The Sopranos, Rob?
Late. I just watched it like 2-3 months ago.
Oh. Game of Thrones, Rob?
I was live with Game of Thrones the last 2 seasons.
Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I've only watched the first 8 episodes.
And you call yourself a Seinfeld guy?
I'm the biggest Seinfeld fan. I've watched 3 episodes today while I was eating.
How have you not watched Curb Your Enthusiasm then? How
because
are you?
Honestly, this is just funny because I don't want it to be over. I want to always have it to watch. But I will though, because I watched the first season, Mike, and I was dead. I fell off the couch one episode when he was in the bedroom and he put on the porn. Oh,
it's good stuff.
I was dead. I've never been on the floor laughing so hard. So I'm excited about Curb Your Enthusiasm, but I get weird, Mike. Well, that's a whole nother podcast. We'll talk later.
Yeah, we all know you're a weirdo. All right, Rob, hit the music, put the logo up. I want to go watch The Last Dance.
The music is gonna go with the old logo, but what I'll do is see, and that's what I'll do for the people. All right, peeps. Where?